Hey man,
Hello.
let me try and center you a bit more. You are kind of to the side for me, so there we go. I figured it out.
Cool. Very
Technology.
good. Yeah,
Awesome. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Great.
Uh, yeah, first of all, hey, thanks for doing this. I
Thanks for
basic
inviting me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Basically, originally how I was just listening to music on Apple Music Discovery, and I've been doing that for quite a few months now, and this was kind of like a recent, well, not recent, but relatively recent discovery. I was like, oh, that's new music. That's a really cool track, and I think it was Blueprint by
Oh
you.
yeah. Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, that's nice, and then I checked out the rest of it, and so that's how I
Interesting.
discovered you. So I thought it would be cool to chat with you, and also you have a pretty like I'd say unique background of how you know got into the gaming world, and also
Yeah.
in terms of where you are right now. Also, because you've already done stuff, but you clearly want to do more, and you're in the game industry
Yeah.
otherwise as well. So I thought this might be pretty interesting from like a multiple different angles.
Yeah. I feel like I'm very like the odd one because yeah, everyone else you've interviewed are probably like professional. But yeah, I'm not actually a professional musician. It's more like a hobby for me right now, at least. So I guess in that sense, it's a bit different than the usual.
Well, yes and no, and I mean, like I said, I think this is it's an interesting thing because you've already done stuff, you released stuff, and it's been heard by quite a lot of people. So in that sense, uh, yes, but also it's interesting because so I mean, first of all, for those who are listening, probably the most the biggest thing you've done is the soundtrack for Shapes, or how do you actually pronounce that? Is
Yeah, it's shapes. Yeah.
Shapes, not like Shapes.
No, it's I don't actually know. To be honest, I just say shapes.
You never
I,
asked.
no, I guess not. I think it's just shapes. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way,
Yeah.
are you going to write the soundtrack for Shapes too?
Yes, that is the big thing I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, very nice. But yeah, I mean that's really probably the biggest thing. Like I said, it's great music.
Well,
But
to be honest, I guess shapes is kind of the biggest thing but I think the mod I made for Rimworld is technically bigger and is known by more people. To be honest.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll definitely loop back to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, just for context, so people know what you've done and also what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's for me, it's super important to explore all kinds of different, first of all, people on this podcast. But you are in a unique position in that you've done some stuff, sort of unofficially, and then also officially on Shape. So if we think about the Ring World mod stuff as kind of something unofficial that you did
Yeah.
out of your own interest, and then I would presume you got Shapes as a result of that, or was that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And now you're going into Shapes 2, which, by the way, is in the Steam wish list ranking on spot 96 right now. So
Yeah.
that's no small thing either. So you shouldn't downplay your position either. But I think that's super interesting because people might get like a unique perspective on, hey, how could I build my own career?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
yeah, so yeah, it's my pleasure to have you on and chat about these kind of things. But I thought we would really start from the very beginning, just to lay kind of a background, and then we can
Yeah.
go into the music stuff. But I read that you were actually born and raised in, I don't know how this is exactly pronounced in Swedish, but we call it parainen
Yeah.
in Finland. But how do you say it? Do you just say pargas or how?
Yeah, Pargas.
Pargas.
Yeah.
All right. So you probably you probably speak fluent Finnish, by the way.
Well, I should be able to, but I understand fluent Finnish, but I haven't actually. I've been living in Sweden for a long time now, so yeah, I can speak Finnish, but I wouldn't say fluent. I guess I'm downplaying myself again, but yeah.
Yeah, no, because I don't actually know how that sort of works. Because actually, parainen or pargas is right across the. I'm in Salvo right now, where my studio is. So it's
okay.
across.
Yeah, it's close,
across the. What do you call it? The bit of water in between. So I can actually see it from here if I look at the window.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like 50-50 Finnish and Swedish, and it's kind of like a bit segregated in the sense that the Swedish talking are with each other and then the Finnish talking are with each other, so we don't really interact that much, to be honest.
It's like a cult.
Yeah.
But is it sort of possible to like go through your life without ever, well, ever is pushing it maybe, but is it possible to go through your life just speaking Swedish in that?
Yeah, 100%. But
Okay.
it depends on like where you are. Like in Åbo, Turku, no, but Pargas, kinda, and then there's places up north, Österbotten, which is, what is it called? Pohjanmaa. There's places there where it's like almost 99% Swedish, like the villages. So they can't speak. Some of them can't speak Finnish at all. So
yeah,
it's a bit weird.
That I do know, but like Pargas is more like it's like a satellite place very close to Turku or Åbo.
Yeah,
and it's like I would think it would be harder to just stay in the Swedish bubble, but
no, it is harder, but it's possible.
It's possible. Did you go to only like Swedish speaking schools?
Yeah.
How does that?
So they have different schools for Swedish and Finnish.
Yeah. So is that like 100% Swedish?
Yes.
Like in terms of the language.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we learn Finnish in school, but like there's no.
So you do have to learn it.
Of course.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I don't want to assume because I don't know. I mean, I know that everybody in Finland. I don't actually know how it is today. I still think Swedish is mandatory, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we start learning Finnish like earlier than the Finnish people learn Swedish. They learn it later.
Yeah. So like
we started in like 3rd grade or something, 4th grade. I don't remember exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And I started at 7th grade. You do get the option to start it earlier if you want. I think 5th grade was the earliest we could do it, I think, if there was enough people who were interested. Because I think you got to sort of if you could pull together enough kids to like pick a language, you could start earlier. But I think for us it was German that we chose, and maybe French. But yeah, so but your Finnish is definitely a lot better than my Swedish is.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, my mom is actually like 100% Finnish, like grown up as, she's from Lahtis. So, but she learned like Swedish in university, and now she speaks mostly Swedish with us. 100% Swedish with us. So, in that sense, we speak only Swedish at home. So. Yeah. I mostly learned my Finnish, to be honest, from football, because when you play football, there's people from both Finnish speaking and Swedish speaking side. So you have to like learn there.
Yeah.
And the language we spoke in the team was Finnish as well.
But the contents of that language is probably not very diverse or intelligent, maybe.
True, for the most part.
You learn all the worse words.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm bringing this up so that people don't. I mean, it's if you were 100% fluent in Finnish, it's funny that we're talking English to each other,
Mm,
but just
yeah,
for context, and also that people know that we don't actually know each other, at least yet. So
yeah.
even though we're both from the same uh, place, so if we, so you went through, was it so? Your mother spoke Finnish, but did you have like a multilingual environment, or was that sort of just tossed to the side? Was it like almost entirely Swedish?
Well, mostly with my friends and stuff like that. But
Mm.
like I have cousins and my grandmother speaks Finnish, so uh, that's mostly where I interacted with the Finnish language. Is that my relatives and then football. That's about it, or sports. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find have you noticed because like oftentimes lingualism, I don't know if that's even a word, but a lot of people do talk about the benefits of that it does help in general development, but have you found in terms of creativity, have you found or realized um, any cases or situations where you sort of found it to help your creativity? Because a lot of people report that it does help you sort of think about things from slightly different ways or from different perspectives.
Maybe, but I wouldn't say consciously that it has affected me. And I think I with languages, I'm not really good at languages. Even so, it's been very difficult for me with Finnish overall, since it's also a very different language. Like it's a lot easier for me to learn English from Swedish because it's closer.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
actually the same for me because my dad speaks English to me,
oh,
and mom speaks Finnish. But I've always been absolutely horrible in learning languages, like
yeah,
really bad. Um, to be fair, not very interested either, but it's always
yeah,
been super tough. So I don't know if that is like a multilingual thing as well. Although in theory they say that the more you know languages, the easier it should be to learn other ones. But
yeah. But it's difficult for me as well. Very difficult.
yeah, you reserve your brain power for other things. What did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, they're both chemists, I guess. But I guess my dad had a company. Really don't. To be honest, he did a lot of IT stuff before IT stuff was popular, uh, and then my mom has been working for the same like uh, company for a long time. Done different stuff for that.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's kind of very interesting background. Was creativity a part of your like household growing up, or
well, yeah, my dad is he played for a band and he plays banjo and my
banjo?
yeah.
Really, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, and both he sang as well, and my mom as well did sing for the choir. And I guess
Which choirs?
uh, Åbo Akademi,
Oh,
Florakören. I don't know if it has a Finnish name.
I think that's the one I've heard as well, because
Okay,
I guess they don't. There's no reason to call it anything in Finnish.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
So I guess we have a quite musical family. My brother as well. He plays guitar and
yeah. So
mm,
were you directed into creativity? Where did they tell you like you have to pick up an instrument or do a creative hobby?
I don't think so, really. I mean, family, we all did a lot of hobbies. We had a lot of. I mean, I played everything like handball, football, ice hockey. as well. Like I did learn the drums in school as well. Or not as in school, but in I don't know what it's called, like a music school that's on the side.
Yeah.
I think I think I actually did that because my brother did it as well.
Was that the
I
one
think
in Obu? Or
no, there's one in
oh,
Parainen.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like they didn't specifically push you in that direction, but didn't deny anything
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
And you said
Yeah, I guess I'm very grateful that I had the option to do whatever I wanted, I guess.
yeah.
I don't think everyone has that.
No, for sure. Yeah. You said you did a lot of different sports as well. Were you sort of hopping between sports or hobbies in general? And if you were, how often and why did you hop between them?
Well, I think when you're younger, it's not you have the more option to do more things because it's not that serious. It's more like fun stuff. So at that point, I don't really remember what all like everything I did, but later on, it becomes more serious when you get and you have more trainings and for example, I had to choose later on between like football and something else. So at that point, yeah, I chose football, and then I just kept that because that was my favorite one. So I didn't really jump after that anymore. But I don't really remember before that if I had. I do remember that I really hated ice hockey, and I was a bit afraid to say that to my parents.
Yeah, that's basically heresy in Finland.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so. But at one point, I was like, no, I don't want to continue this.
What was it about ice hockey that you didn't enjoy?
I think there's two things. One is like the amount of gear you need to have. I just hated putting all the gear on every time. And then I didn't have really that many friends in the team as well. So yeah, that is important with team sports, that you feel a part of the team.
Yeah, and usually the ice hockey teams tend to have a certain type of culture as well. So, and I guess that's fine if you, like you said, if you had friends around, then it would be easier to slot into that. But it can, if you don't have friends in that culture, it can be, pretty tough to fit in. But yeah, and I'm also asking because from what I've gathered, it tends to be the case that creative types do hop a lot between different hobbies, and sometimes they can do it if their parents first of all let them, and if they can afford it, because that can also get expensive if they're always changing sports, like every season basically.
Did you do that? Did you hop between sport?
No. So I sport wise, I was very unfortunately quite inactive for most. When I was really, really young, I played a lot of football with my dad, and then in my sort of early teens, I got into mountain biking a bit, which was a lot of fun.
Oh.
Like not in any serious fashion. I just literally took my mountain bike and went to the local hill and just biked it. Nothing beyond that. I did that quite a lot at one time, but yeah, no, unfortunately not. I think it would have been really helpful for me. First of all, obviously health reasons, but secondarily, like you learn a lot of discipline through different sports as well. But I do relate to what you said about not having like friends in team sports. I did try joining like a football team when I was very young, but I just had no connections to any of the kids, and anything else that I tried after that, yeah, it was like there was a lot of social anxiety relating to the group, because I didn't know any of the kids. Most of the time I didn't even know like where I was going and what I was supposed to be doing. Like my dad would just pick me up and plonk me down to the place and say, look, play this, and I'm like, I don't even understand what's happening. And also I was like, I'm extremely sensitive, like from the ground up. So that environment was just overwhelming to me, and I didn't understand what was happening. Or, I didn't talk with any of the kids. I didn't understand how they even, socialized or anything like that.
Yeah, I get that. That was how I felt with the ice hockey, and one reason I wanted to quit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that's pretty tough because it's also a very, very physical sport, very like aggressive sport. So that can, if that doesn't click with you,
Yeah.
plus you have the social element, then it can be super overwhelming.
For me, it was like because I felt like in a team with the football, so I had something to compare with as well. So I was like, okay, this is so much better than that. Why am I doing this? So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, for sure. What were you like as a kid in general? I mean, were you sort of like a more of a sensitive type, or what were you like growing up?
I think maybe not the best. I'm biased, I guess, so don't really ask me that. You should ask someone that knows me. I'll probably say something that, like, well, I guess I was pretty active in general, probably a bit, yeah, maybe a bit too active sometimes. But
What do you mean by
generally,
that? Like
I guess, like,
hyper?
yeah, a bit too hyper sometimes.
You mean
I
like
do remember like
both
getting
physically?
detention, getting detentions for throwing snowballs and stuff like that. But uh, s- otherwise, I was like, I guess, quite carefree. I had a really good childhood. I should be really happy about that. Um, it
Yeah,
was fun. I had a lot of fun. I wasn't really that sensitive. I think
yeah.
I was just getting on with my day.
That sounds pretty solid.
Yeah.
Uh, so I, I guess I could ask at this point. Obviously, you have, because you made this music mod for Rimworld. I would expect that video games probably came into the picture for you at some point. When did that happen? And have you been like a gamer for most of your life?
Well, yeah, I guess it came a bit later than usual, but still, I mean, at this, like, if you would grow up now, you would have video games that, like, when you're 3 years old, you have your iPad or something like that,
Yeah,
which is a bit bad, in my opinion. I think you should get that later. But I do have a big brother, which, yeah, we had a PS2. I think that was the first. Well, we had a PS1 as well, but uh, that was I think we broke it very early or someone broke it. Yeah, but I remember the PS2, and that was, what was that, like, I don't remember how old I was, maybe 10, 9, 10, something like that. And I remember we played a lot of Guitar Hero, so that was like first thing I remember playing a lot.
very
uh,
addictive.
yeah, and I guess it's musical as well, like, maybe, yeah, maybe the music comes from there as well. I don't know, possibly. I played that a lot, and I don't remember when I got my first PC. Maybe that must have been in elementary school, maybe like third grade, fourth grade, or something. I remember I had one friend in my that had a cousin that played a game called Maple Story, which is, I don't know if you know that game.
I don't think so.
It's like a MMORPG from Korea, Nexon, which is like a 2D game, but it's very colorful and childish. I guess it looks like that, but it's still very popular in Korea. So we played that a lot together with my friends, and uh, I guess the music there. I still remember a lot of the music there as well, which is why I guess my music a bit sounds a bit like that sometimes as well.
Yeah, you can
Because
you can
you
definitely
get your
hear.
inspirations from that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely hear some of the some especially in the melodies, like just the tonal language of the melodies, and also the rhythm element. I thought maybe more because I'm very inspired by a lot of Japanese
Yeah.
stuff, so I would kind of recognize certain patterns that are similar to that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's you have to be careful what you listen to when you're young, because that will end up influencing you a lot. For me, it's
Yeah.
Nobuo Uematsu from
Yeah.
Final Fantasy series. It's like hands down the biggest influence that I have. But was like, were video games something you just sort of like played on the side, or was it like, I love this stuff and I want to do it always? Or
Yeah, I think it was the latter. Like, I did stay up late a lot, and I guess when everyone else stopped playing, got into the age when they stopped playing and like were more into girls and that kind of things, I just kept playing, and I was like the last one playing as well. So it definitely like stuck with me, and after that, I haven't looked back. I still play, of course.
yeah.
So it is a big part of my life.
Did you ever back then have thoughts of like it would be nice to write music for video games, or did you want to make games yourself or anything like that, or did that formulate later on?
No, I don't think I'd ever thought about that when I played. I think it was maybe I don't know if it was like, oh, I couldn't really understand that you could do this for a living. Maybe it was that. I think it was more like that. Like I didn't even get the idea that you could actually do this as a job. So I think, and then the other thing is like I was thinking, like, even if it were a job, it's probably very difficult to get into. I don't know if I would have thought about that, but afterwards, like later on, that's what I thought when I was like, okay, this would be fun to do. But I mean, it's how do you do it? How do you get into it?
Yeah. Yeah. Was your you mentioned playing drums. Was that your first sort of contact point into music? Like, is that how you got into making music yourself, or was there something before that?
I'm not. I don't remember the time frame actually, but I did when I got my first computer. I remember I was looking at YouTube videos, and I don't remember how I got into it, but I found like FL Studio tutorials, and then I went into actually making some music myself when I was like 13 years old.
So that happened before and playing any instruments.
I don't know. I'm not sure if it was the same time or which came first. I can't remember. I don't think they were related though. I don't think I was like, if I had played the drums, I was like, I want to make music. I just happened to find a video and was like, oh, this. I think the video on YouTube was the thing that was like, oh shit, I can do this in my home. I can do this. Yeah, exactly. And it was more the revelation of, oh, I can, like, I don't need anything else. I can just download this and just do it on my computer. Like, that's crazy. And that's how I got into it, I think.
So it's more like the realization of the opportunity made you understand what you wanted to do, rather than having an idea of, I want to write music and then going to dig for it. Yeah. No, I think that's super important to touch on, because it can be that way for a lot of people. You find a piece of technology, or you find some kind of opportunity, and then you're like, ooh, I like doing this. And then you go from there. Do you remember at what age you started to play the drums?
That's the thing, I don't remember. But I didn't play for long. The reason was because we had, at the same time we had to play drums, we had to also learn music theory. And it was not related at all, because it was not music theory for drums. It was music theory in general, which is different. Like, the notes you learn for drums are not the same you learn for, in general, music theory. So I felt like, why am I doing this? Why am I learning music theory for like piano when I'm playing the drums? Like, I just want to bang stuff. So, it was just I was a kid and I was like, I don't want to learn music theory, and that's why I stopped as well. I wanted to. I guess I kind of wanted to play in a band more at that point. I don't remember what age. I think I was in seventh grade. How old are you? 13? I guess it was the same age as I started with the music with FL Studio. So I think it was that age. But then I stopped because I didn't like the music theory, which is stupid now. It would have been nice to continue, but when you're 13, you don't want to learn something you don't feel like is necessary for you at the time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be improved upon when it comes to how we learn and teach music theory. It's really a big shame because it can be very useful.
Yeah.
Obviously for musicians, but
Yeah.
if you learn it in this sort of isolated, completely separated world from
Yeah.
what it is that you want to do in music, it can be very difficult to put them together. Instead, maybe we should maybe learn that theory through the music that we like to either create or play.
Yeah.
That seems like a better idea for me. And I had a very similar background myself, but in addition to that, I also have basically a learning disability when it comes to processing symbols. So, and this is the reason why math and music theory, learning both, are super difficult for me.
Yeah.
Super, and I went to university to study music theory as well. So that was definitely tough. But even throughout all of that, it just never, that was not a good medium for me to learn music theory. But if you give me like a piece of music and then I begin to break it down, like it could be anything. Give like a piano to me and give a piece to me to listen to and break it down. I learn so much through that, and just faster and more efficiently. But yeah, I think there's a lot we could do to make music theory sort of cooler and more interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way I learned music theory when I was 13 really, really scarred my understanding of music theory, and still I have like a bit of a hatred towards it just because of that. And it is very important that for kids, at least, if they have to learn, have to learn music theory. If they don't want to learn music theory, then at least make it fun, because the way I learned it was terrible. And I'm still like, every time someone says, "Hey, you music theory," I'm like, oh, hate it.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that you are a person who writes music, like, well, I mean, you could say professionally or semi-professionally, whatever definition you're happy with, but I mean,
Yeah.
And you think that way, and it's crazy. Like, this is a thing you love to do, like, and you do it out of your own interest. Yet, the information that we use to process that material, you don't subscribe to or enjoy the traditional way of how it's taught. It sounds crazy.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I've learned music theory through YouTube videos afterwards, in different types of ways. But the traditional, like, notation, like on paper, like when I look at that, I cry a little bit.
Yeah,
Because it's
pretty much the same for me.
Yeah.
It just hurts my brain.
Yeah, exactly.
What instruments do you play now?
Well, it depends on
Your
the
definition.
level.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
but in any sort of a way or shape that you.
if someone would ask that to me, just in general, I would just say I don't play any instruments. Really, I can't really. I'm not really. I don't know. I've never really been good with learning instruments. I've tried different times, but my fingers don't agree with my brain. So
That's a
it's very
problem.
Yeah. So exactly. I do play a piano. Like, I can improvise on piano, but I play chords and stuff. But that's about it. And drums, I can play basic. I'm not like a very good drummer.
Yeah. So when you compose, are you like pretty much entirely in the MIDI editor, or do you actually use the keyboard to input?
I do use the keyboard, but I mean, I can never play perfectly. I will always have to go and edit stuff afterwards, or sometimes I will just improvise on my tiny MIDI keyboard I have here, and then put it into the MIDI editor thing.
Yeah.
I guess I play the piano roll. That's what I play.
Yeah, no, I completely understand the feeling of that, because I'm not an instrumentalist either. I trained pretty far into drums, but I haven't actually touched a physical drum kit in years. I mean, I play a lot of drums here on my keyboard with my fingers. And also, like, I'm always like body drumming, or well, not body drumming, but like drumming on my quads,
Yeah.
I guess. But it's like I would struggle to define myself in relation to being an instrumentalist of any sort. And I play the keyboard more than I play anything else, but I'm not a trained like pianist or keyboard player or anything like that. So, but that seems like to be like a pretty typical composer response, because that's not what we're at least primarily interested in. You know, you want to create music and you just want to get to the result any way you have, any way you need to, really.
Yeah, and with, I guess with Shapez of music, it's a lot more production, effects, designing sounds, more than actually composing sometimes. So, which I feel like I'm better at than actually playing the instrument itself. So the music itself is quite basic, but everything else.
You say that, but it's like, I believe that you call it production, but I think it's actually a part of composing music, to select the right sounds, to build the right textures, to pair the note with the sound element of it. And I actually think that's composition, which you clearly do really well. And it's not like it's an art of its own to create a simple piece of music, so-called, and then make it actually sound good. The simplicity isn't like it's not an easier thing. It's probably harder to make it simple and beautiful and good sounding, rather than, putting more stuff in there. And I understand I know exactly what you mean by that, but it's also, how should I put this? Yeah, it's you shouldn't downplay the effects of that, because I know as a composer you can feel like, oh, this is such a simple piece of music. Then you compare yourself to like a classical composer who is dealing with a massive symphonic orchestra, etc. But that's not necessarily any easier or harder. They're very different things, and obviously that depends also on who you are and what you want to write. But it's not easy what you do.
No, it's a lot of practice as well. A lot of failing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And also you write music for video games, which means you as a composer need to identify the function of the music.
Yeah.
And if it was like super complex and getting in the way of the experience of playing the game, then you're failing as a composer. So you also need that simplicity. Just or do you want to say something regarding that, or?
No, you can say.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the drums. When you started playing that, was there like an immediate click with that? Did you enjoy it, or was it like just meh?
I think, well, we had a teacher in elementary school where we actually played. We had a band in the school, which was before I actually learned the drums. And I had that was a lot of fun because we just played popular songs, and I played drums by that. But then when I actually went to learn it like properly, that I did not like that because it took the fun out of playing. It really did because I mean I feel like if you want to become a musician, that's something you have to go through. That's not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to play in a band. That is sometimes not the same thing as being a professional musician where you have to know all the different like comps you can play and yeah. So when I played it in a band, that clicked and that was very, very fun. But as soon as I had to learn in a school environment, it really destroyed my enthusiasm for the instrument, which is a shame. But and the worst part was at that point I did not play in a band, so I only learned in the school, and I didn't play for fun in my free time. So yeah, that's why I then stopped because it was no longer fun at all, and it was supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun to play an instrument. If it's not, then why are you doing it? So that's why I stopped and played games instead.
Yeah, again, there's the separation between what you want to do with the music versus learning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I spent, I think, 9 or 10 years at like a local music school playing the drums. And I don't, it must have been like less than a handful times, certainly less than 3 times probably, when we actually played a song that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, if you're going to be an instrumentalist and you want to go out there and you're supposed to play these different gigs for different cover bands or live bands for whatever, that's a very different story. But I never wanted to be any of those things. And it's just like, if I'm just here to play like blues or jazz standards or something like that, or like really crappy rock songs, then I'd rather do something else, just like you did. You'd rather play video games. But I think that's like a dead giveaway that you are someone who wants to create versus someone who wants to just replicate what already exists. And I think that's super important for people to realize. If that sounds like you, then there's a high chance that you are a creator. Like you want to go out there and create stuff. And it's important to understand that difference sooner rather than later, because
that's true.
I remember I was when you're finishing high school and you have to think about what you want to do, like in a way it was kind of obvious that I would try and do something music related, but in reality I was not a good enough player. That's just the truth. Like drums would have probably been the best shot that I have, but I wouldn't cut it in a conservatory environment, and I would hate it because I don't want to read notes, and I don't want to do the traditional path. So, yeah, it can be. And I learned much later that I actually want to write music. That's what I want to do, versus playing other people's songs. So.
I think I learned that pretty quickly because I did do it when I was 13 years old when I started with FL Studio. When I just downloaded and did my own song, like that was a lot of fun. That was a lot more fun than learning the drums. And yeah, I mean, I guess just testing it out really helped me. And nobody even told me to do it. Nobody gave me. It just came from myself as well. That really helped as well to understand that this is what I want to do, because it didn't come from anyone else. I just happened to stumble upon it, and now we're here.
That's actually super early. Like because I remember back in my day when I was young, I can't even remember how young, but the first contact point that I had to like a DAW experience was this software called EJ. I don't know if you've ever even heard of it.
No.
Yeah, but I know many people have. Like if you're a bit like
Yeah.
I'm 34 now, so people my age or older will know that. But I had this like demo version of it, and I got it from my brother. So and basically it has like a selection of loops, and all you can do is drag the loops to different
Yeah.
places. But the structure is basically the same as a DAW. You're just dealing with pre-made loops, and that
Yeah.
really taught me a lot about arrangement and how to structure a track. I literally I used to play with that demo so much that I knew all of the loops by heart. Like I tried every single combination you could,
Yeah.
and that was like my first touch. But to that kind of a world. But it would have been probably very different if I had like a DAW like you did. So that's super super early. Did you just keep creating music in the DAW throughout the years since you were 13?
No, I remember I remember I had a big I like a quick like a quite a long break between maybe 15 and 18. So I did it for like 2 years, and then I don't remember why I stopped. I think I got to the point where I felt like I wanted to be better. It was not just fun. It was I wanted to actually make something that was good, and I didn't feel like I was good enough. So I just was like, okay, I'm not good enough for this, so I'm just gonna stop. Uh, and I don't remember why I came back. I'm not completely sure how that happened, but I remember making a like a remix of an EDM song when at the end of the ninth grade, when everyone we had to do like a project, like a 1 week project, and we could do whatever we wanted. And I did a remix of a track and then a music video. Then after that, I think after that I started making music for Rimworld as well. So after I got into it again, which was, and the funny thing is, it was super different from what the music I was doing before. It's very different because I was making like trance and EDM, and then I went and did the Rimworld stuff, which is very calm and totally different. It was more like the Maple Story music that I listened to earlier, and then yeah, I don't know if we should go into that now, or if you wanted to ask something else than the Rimworld stuff.
No, sure, yeah, we can go into it.
Yeah. Okay, so at that point, I had played Rimworld, and I felt like the music was good, but since Rimworld is a game that you play hundreds of hours, I felt like, well, you could have more variety. And I was also part of like the forums, which is before the game was on Steam. So they had a forum where I was reading that a lot, and I saw that you can mod the game, and I also saw that someone had made a music mod for the game, and then I just posted my. No, that's not actually true. I actually posted the track for some reason. I posted it on the forum, and I thought like, okay, this is like a fan song for the game. I did one track, and then I got a lot of good feedback on it, and someone suggested to me that I should make a music mod. So it wasn't from me actually. It was a suggestion from someone on the forum.
So how old were you at this point? Do you remember the year? Well, I guess your age is both are interesting, but
I think I was 18 or 19. Yeah, I could check that, but I think that was yeah.
How old are you now?
I'm 27.
Yeah.
So it was a long time ago. It was like 8 years ago.
Yeah. I just heard that Rimworld got sold to Microsoft for like ungodly amount of money.
Yeah, that was an April Fool's joke.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yes.
makes sense. I saw it
Uh,
on Reddit and I was like, that's a lot of money.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, did you? Because you started making these tracks of yours in, like, at a very early moment. Did you sort of just like drift into creating music, or was there like a conscious moment where you either realized that, hey, this is what I want to do, or this is what I want to do, or was it sort of just always present and you just kept doing it?
Well, for Rimworld, I when I made that, it was just like a hobby. It was just for fun. It was not really like I was not thinking like it's something I want to do for a living, for example. But after I released it and I added a few songs, then at that point I realized that maybe I'm good enough to actually do this as a profession. And at that point, I was studying like economics, and I hated it. So then I dropped out of that, and actually I applied for a school in Sweden that which is a university that is for music for video games specifically, which is not something we have in Finland, which is why I applied for it. And I think that is something that really is more needed in Finland as well. Which yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in Finland that there's very few opportunities for that kind of thing, like making music or making. There is more now, but when I started, there wasn't like almost nothing where you could learn music or sound for video games specifically. I guess they were a bit slow on that. Like there's only mobile games in Finland mostly, so the PC industry is not really great in Finland compared to Sweden. So there's a lot more educations for specifically video games, and that's why I then moved here to study that. Unfortunately, I didn't get in to the music one. So I
you
got
moved in before you got into the school.
No, I got in. I got into the sound design actually.
Right.
So I which was very very similar. We had almost everything. Every courses were similar except music theory. so
Sounds good.
I got yeah, exactly. So, but of course I didn't get to for all the like group projects that we had. I instead I made sound design instead of actually the music. But I still learned a lot. But
how did you
the problem?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The problem with the education is that still it's university. It's like academic, and I mean composing is not. It's very little like academic. It's more creative and more hands-on, in my opinion. We have there's music theory, of course, but that's about it. Like we had to write a lot of papers on stuff that, like for example, game analysis and that kind of thing, which is fine for some people that want to go into actually more of the researching part of video games. But that's not really what I wanted to do. So it wasn't really what I thought it was. That kind of might be my own fault, might be the school's fault. I don't really know how it was advertised. I didn't really check too much into it. I was too eager to just jump into something without really researching it properly. It's also a very new education and it's a new field. Like there's not been that many video game composers. It's a very new thing. So I understand that the educations aren't like great at the moment. They're still working on it.
Was the experience like a net positive to you, all things considered, or
Well, it was very easy. It was almost too easy. It didn't take a lot of time, which meant I had a lot of time to do my own things, which was Rimworld and other music projects and learning music on my own. But so for me, it was a positive experience because I had a lot of time to figure out stuff. But I guess for other people that wanted more direction and help, I feel sorry for those because I don't think that the school did a good job with that. I'm not here to slander the school. I should, but
no, I
I guess
understand.
I am now.
And it's like
I,
even if a school is good or great, it can always be better. So
yeah,
the point isn't
I mean,
to shit on anybody.
there's some good things about the school, but I think the biggest part was it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It's more for research purposes and more. It's I guess it's a bit old school as well, like looking at video game or music for media. Media changes all the time. There's always new uh, tech and stuff like that. So like VR is a new thing as well. Like how do you make music for that? There's so many new things that they just can't teach because they don't really know about it. Like they're good at they've been learning about audio dramas, and now there's video games. Like the people that are actually teaching don't really play video games, so they don't really know. So how can they teach when they're not like very good at the medium itself? So I do understand that it's an issue when teaching this like very new stuff.
Yeah, and I think this is super important to bring up because somebody might be listening and they're considering going to a school, and
Yeah,
like you said, people they want to see what they want to see. So it's like they are attaching their romanticized
mm,
idea of what they want the school to be to that school, and I'm just going to apply and it's going to be these kind of things. But that doesn't necessarily match the reality. And also, it seems so absurd to even have to say this, but if you want to learn something, then you should find somebody who does the thing that you want to do and learn from
yeah,
them. So if you're learning
yeah,
from people who don't even do the thing or haven't done the thing that you want to do, it it makes absolutely
mm,
no sense. That's not to say they can't know things and they can't, have bits and pieces
yeah,
from here, but that's a very different thing to go there and get the bits and pieces than it is to go to somebody who's actually done it and know all the big picture of what you want to do and learn things from them. Um, it, so it's a
yeah.
pretty absurd thing to expect someone to teach you something that they themselves don't do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the progression to Shapes like? When did that sort of come in? How did you make that project happen?
Yeah. It was from the Rimworld mod. There was one, I guess, a fan that was writing to me for that, and then he said that he had a friend that needed some music for a game, and that was a predecessor to Shapes, or I guess the game he made before Shapes was called Yorg 3IO, and I made music for that. And then after that, he made Shapes and asked me again then if I could make music for it. So that's how I came into contact with him.
Oh yeah, so interesting. The Jorg happened before that, and then
Yeah,
okay, yeah. Well, I think that's again like uh, it's all about people. Like
yeah, yeah,
you knew
yeah.
this person, you did something for them. Maybe that I don't know how big that Jorg turned out to
No,
be.
it was just it was just a small. It was browser game. I guess it is on Steam, but
Yeah.
It's mostly for browser. I guess Shapes as well was it was for browser technically to begin with. It wasn't on Steam at the start. It was just a browser game, and then it became much bigger than I guess he thought it as well, because it. I mean, it was like a JavaScript game. It was not really like meant for like a big scale factory game. So that's one reason why they're also making Shapes 2, because they see the potential and they need to actually make it a proper game, not a browser game. I'm not saying a browser game is a proper game, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, it's a good example of not like you never know what's going to turn into what, and because I don't know, like maybe you could have done the first game and then you thought, this doesn't like this didn't turn into anything, and maybe you would stop making music altogether or disappear from the face of the earth, and then this guy goes into making Shapes, and then you're not there to take be a part of that opportunity. And also like it's just knowing the right people. Some random person on the internet recommended you or referred you.
I think one thing is that really helped with with the mod as well, because a lot of modders are aspiring game developers, so there has been a lot of modders that then make the game make a game. For example, there's another project I worked on as well, which is called Ascent of Ashes on Steam, which is an old Rimworld modder that decided to make a game and then asked me, because I've been part of the community and part of and that's probably the only composer he knows. So and then he asked me, and I've worked on that game as well, which is, guess that one is coming out soon as well.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's you never know. That's actually a really really good piece of advice regarding the modders, because they are, like you said, aspiring game devs.
Some of them are, not all of them,
not all of them, yeah, but definitely quite a few of them are.
Yeah, sure.
So it's and like you said, it's like it's not that they don't know a lot of music that they enjoy listening to, but they don't have like a connection to somebody to ask them to join their join their project. So if they like your music and they semi know you, or they have a connection, they're probably gonna go for that over the other options that they might not have any access to even.
Yeah, for indie game like composers, networking is very very important, and that's something I'm not great at in other parts of, like, I do have the mod and the community, but in other ways I'm not really good at networking. But that is super super important if you want to make games for indie as well. Because it's not either enough. It's not enough to have one project. You need more projects, because as a composer, you're not working 3 years on one project. It doesn't take that long to make music. You need more projects, and that's one thing that is very stressful for me as a composer. That you constantly need more projects and need to find more projects. And sometimes you will have projects that you don't really want to work on, but you're like, I have nothing else. Should I just go for this, or should I wait for something better? Yeah.
Do you write music fast, or what's your pace like?
I used to be quite fast, but now that I have more experience, I have a higher standard, I guess. Now it takes a lot longer, and I'm not like, this is good enough. I'm like, well, this is good, but I can do better. So I try to rewrite stuff and make it as good as I can. And sometimes that it doesn't even improve the track at all. So it's just a waste. But I mean, at least I try. But I just checked the last. Well, one of the Shapez tracks that I finished, it took 30 hours of active time. I can see the hours in FL Studio. So I don't know if that's fast or slow, but
does that like? Well, first of all, do you mix your own music as well?
yeah, I do everything.
So that's from composition to mix to master.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that's fast. I mean, like a pro mixer, like at the very top, maybe like spends a one work day on a mix, and maybe comes back the next day and uses a few hours to kind of just make sure that do the last tweaks and make sure that they have enough perspective to the mix. So that's probably what would we say? Maybe that could be like 12 hours or something. So my from how many hours did you say? 30?
Yeah.
So that leaves you with not much, 18 hours to compose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fast. Yeah.
But I do both at the same time, technically, I guess, like mix and compose.
Yeah.
So I don't like, I usually don't really spend hours after I feel like I'm done to then mix. It's like if I'm done, then I'm done. Then I do have the mastering part, but that doesn't take that like very long for me. Of course, now I'm saying like active time. So this is actually working on the project. There's a lot of time where I do listen to the music outside, like for example, on my headphones or when I'm like going to work or something like that, in the car. So I can like check in different environments as well.
Do you? Because it sounds like you're obviously very conscious of the fact that just putting more hours and more work into it isn't necessarily making it any better or at much better at best.
Yeah.
So is that something you carry into the working process in your mind sort of actively, or do you have any sort of mindset or some kind of strategy of going into it so that you don't extend yourself too far in a sort of time equation and work equation sense?
Yeah, I not really, but I feel like when I'm making a track and I feel like one part is just, I mean, when you're listening to the same track, when you're making the same track all over and over, like you're listening to it over and over again, it's gonna sound worse, of course, because you're gonna get tired of it. So if there's some part that I really, really don't like I feel like this could be so much better, then I'm like, I need to rewrite this. But most of the time when I'm making a track, I'm not gonna be liking it. Or to be honest, at some point, at least at some point during the production, I'm gonna be not hating it, but I'm gonna be yeah. So it's very difficult to know if it's because of fatigue, like ear fatigue, or just fatigue of the track because you've listened to it so many times, or if it just is bad. Like there's a fine line there, and for me, I need to take breaks, and when I come back, and if I still feel like it's not great, then I need to rework it. And I've had times where I try to rework it, and then it becomes worse as well. So I usually don't go back to the first one because I didn't like it that either. So I just need to keep reworking it, and sometimes it can take a very long time, but sometimes it goes quickly.
No, I always say that the moment you start working on something, the clock turns on, and it's like the longer it goes,
Mm,
the the more familiar the music is going to become to you. So, you know, when you're writing and you come up with a new idea, you're so excited, you're so like full of energy and like, oh, that's just super interesting and cool. But that emotion and that energy and that feeling is going to fade, and then this is going to become obvious and familiar to you, and then you're just like, well, I mean,
yeah,
you're just going to lose all perspective. So, whatever it takes to bring that perspective back is
yeah,
what you
exactly.
have to leverage. And that's like I'm a proponent of writing as fast as possible, and whenever you bump into something, you just stop and you do something else. Like, and
Yeah,
the something
yeah,
else could be another track, could be another project, could be just, you know, going for a walk or workout or just do other life stuff. But I just try not to spend any amount of time in that space where you're like, ugh, this feels like boring and tedious, because I like every time, if that is the case, and if that's really the case, like if I'm so completely like fed up with a project and the music I'm making, then I'll just take like more time away from it if I can.
yeah,
And if you come back to it, like let's say 2 weeks later, which is a long time, you're gonna look at that with new eyes.
yeah,
But and again, once you get back, then you need to go pretty fast, because otherwise the same thing will happen again. So as a creative, you're always fighting the familiarity. So when things are new, like when the iron is hot, you just need to like go fast and,
yeah,
you know, build whatever you want to build.
yeah. I I don't really use that approach. I usually try to go through to work through the part where I'm like, this is not great. I try to get it to a state where I can listen to it for a long time without being like, this is awful.
Yeah, but you are
And
working on it. You're not like just sort of like dreading it
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so you are
yeah.
actively obviously doing something for it.
Yes.
I don't mean like I stop working when it feels bad. I just mean like
Yeah. Okay.
if I'm in a place where I just lose perspective on it. Like
Yeah.
if it I don't know what to do, and it I just hate the whole song, and is there any point in writing music at all? Then it's time to leave the studio. But
Yeah.
obviously if there's something like, oh, I need to fix this, can I make it work? That's a very different thing. You're obviously like
Yeah.
actively doing something to improve it.
Yeah.
Do you so when it came to Shapes, did you have like very did you have freedom to do what you wanted, or did the developer have like a specific style in mind, and how did that
Yeah.
work?
The good thing about Shapes is it's very ambiguous. It's not doesn't really have a theme. It's just shapes and white. So it doesn't have like for example, Shapes 2 is now in space. So we have that theme. But Shapes is didn't have like a certain theme to go by. So I had a lot of freedom to come up with what I thought was good. And I of course I got like some feedback, but I didn't not like more like this is too hectic or this is too fast rather than I do know that I tried to make more jazzy tracks because I thought that was fun, like jazzy feeling tracks, but he didn't really like jazz, so so that's like one thing. So I needed to make it less jazzy. But that's about it. And it really I mean it was really fun because I could do whatever I thought fit and whatever I thought was good. Which has been a struggle for Shapes too, because now it has a team. Now I have less freedom. And sometimes that can be frustrating because you want to do a certain thing, but it doesn't really fit the theme. but yeah, you have to you have to just do what requires for the game, and yeah, it is a struggle sometimes when my creative mind does not really like correlate to the game I'm making, and I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, but I can't because it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
That's sometimes that's that's why you probably should sometimes as well make your own music, what you want, like independent from a game, just so you can, if the game you're making you're a bit like, oh, I don't really want to make this kind of music, then you can at least take a break, make music that you want to make, and you have that, get the fun feeling at least. I'm not saying it's not fun to make music, not that is different from what you usually make, but it's I don't know, it's more, you have to think more, and it's a bit more forced when you're making something that's not really what you like, comes naturally from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a certain amount of innate energy that and curiosity that builds towards an idea. Like,
Yeah.
like if I'm just sitting here, I have tons of ideas and things that I want to do and explore, and then equally so, there are other ones that I don't, and maybe some of those don't things might be paid projects. But I think even like you said, it's important to get, first of all, some of the stuff out of your system that you want to do, so that you don't get bitter and resentful about the whole thing, and you don't get this kind of pent up feeling. So have an outlet for it. And also I think that gives you perspective on the other stuff that might not be as immediately sort of inspiring or sort of flowing out of you. Because it often is the case that when you do something else, it gives you perspective and appreciation for the other thing, and also, like, you should be curious, like, even if this isn't necessarily something that you would write, simply out of your own interest right now, there's still a bunch of stuff in there that you could test and explore with, and who knows what you might find. So
Yeah.
definitely have to be open to that. What are some of the differences between Shapez 1, I guess you could call it, and Shapez 2, like in terms of writing the music? I guess you could go anywhere you want with this, because there are so many aspects we could talk about, like the instrumentation or the arrangement, or does the like scope of it get bigger, or have there been, obviously you mentioned the challenge of what we just talked about, like maybe it's not the direction where it's going isn't something that's naturally flowing out of you at sort of maximum velocity. But is there something you want to sort of touch on that regarding that soundtrack?
Yeah, as I said, like the space theme is the one that for me is a big challenge, because I'm not really a fan of space music, like the traditional, or what would you call it?
The
like
stereotypes of the
stereotype.
sound.
Yeah, exactly. So, and when making music as well for games, you have to rely a lot on that. You can't. Of course, you can try to revolutionize space music, but I mean, I'm not gonna be doing that in when I have a deadline. I don't know. That's a lot. That's not really what my job is right now. So it's taking more on than I probably need to try and do that. Try to somehow fit my ideas into space music, even though it's not at all that. Like, people will associate space type music with certain things, and they won't get that association if I'm doing something completely different. So my task is to try and use some of the stereotypical things and then incorporate my ideas into that, which is, I guess, the hardest task, because I like to I like to I like to play with space in the sense that you have a lot of close elements, like actually close and then further away. But with space type music, you want everything to be further away, and then you cannot really play with that as much. Like, for example, a lot of the feedback I got from my earlier demos when I sent to the developer was that good, but not enough space. Like, yeah, because I just really tried to go away from that. But that's what I get. Like, yeah, it's good, but it doesn't have the space feeling. So I just needed to add more of that, and that just meant stripping away more of what my ideas and adding more of the stereotypical space stuff, which I'm not really a fan of, but it's what the game needed. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's just those connotations come down to the sounds that you're using, and probably less the notes that you're actually playing. It depends on what you're going for, but and also you can actually I think I heard a couple of tracks from that. I think somebody has posted on YouTube some of you maybe had a demo at some point.
Yeah, there was a Shapez 2 demo with like 30 minutes of music.
Yeah, I did hear some stuff from there, but yeah, it's there you can take spacey sounds and write music that isn't necessarily stereotypical in the sort of compositional sense of space music, and then you can take space music compositionally sort of stereotypically, but use different sounds for that, if that makes sense also. So there's nothing, it's oftentimes like a very blurry line where the connotation will end up, like what creates a sense of, oh, I'm in space right now. It's not a simple thing to boil down to.
No, it is also very, very, I mean, it's very, you can do different things with, like, for example, if you take the Interstellar soundtrack, which is like organ, well, that's not really spacey, but somehow Hans Zimmer makes it spacey. And I don't know if it's how it's reverbed and or how it's composed. Like, there's probably a lot of things that make it work for the space thing, but you can make not traditional instruments sound spacey if you have enough time to experiment and work on it.
Yeah.
Which I don't really have right now. There's a deadline, so at some point you just have to do the work and use what you have and use what you know and what has worked, and just try to keep that like, for example, if you have one good track for a soundtrack, like, use that as a baseline and try to make everything sound similar to that one, but not too samey. But use it as a reference point, and then at some point have to, like, try and suppress the creative mind and just try to just do the work. And yeah, that is difficult, but something you have to do if you work in this field.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good piece of advice, because for this soundtrack that I'm working on right now, that's kind of the same thing. Like, I've tried a bunch of different things, and then you pretty quickly realize, okay, I've steered too far away from the
Yeah.
center, but you have that one
Yes.
track that okay, this nails the sound of this. This is
Yeah.
what the soundtrack is supposed to sound like. And so you go like, you sort of hover around it. You try, maybe this can work, maybe that can work.
Yeah.
But having that very clear sense of the soundscape and the feel of it,
Yeah.
and keeping that really close, that's been, it's not so hard at this point anymore, because we're sort of closer to the end than we are to the beginning, but certainly in the beginning, because you wanted to try
Yeah.
a bunch of different things, and then you realize, oh, this is too orchestral, oh, this is too
Yeah.
retro, and
Yeah.
so if when you find that one thing that works, just like hold on to it and then try to attach everything else to that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you're at the end of a project, you can't really start experimenting anymore. You just have to follow that reference that you have, and try to not be too crazy about the new things you add.
And you wouldn't want to get away from that. If you know like this thing works and this is right, then just like funnel everything around that one thing.
Yeah.
And you can be creative with another project later on in different ways.
Yeah. I guess the problem for me is that the soundtrack is longer now than Shapez 1. And like, how do you make a very, very long soundtrack and you just use one reference song? Like, how can you like keep making interesting music around like this one song that works? Like, that's been at least a little bit my problem with like, okay, if I have this many tracks, I need to do something new in every one of them. But I guess I don't. I maybe should use just tiny bit of new things, but not like try to make it completely new. But I don't know. That's been my struggle. I don't know how long your soundtrack is. Is it very long or?
Yeah, it's turning out to be that kind of weird. The issue I have right now is that it's there's still a lot to be written. So hopefully we're going into early access in July, and in that state that the game will have, it will be maybe I'd probably say 1/3 of the music, and there's no point in me sort of. I have a ton of like material for it, like a lot of like. It's probably close to like 300 drafts of ideas or something like that.
Okay.
But it's right now I'm just trying to make the early access music as good as possible. And then because it's basically like a roguelike, and you go through different star systems, and right now I'm thinking that every single star system is going to have like a different set of tracks. So as you get deeper and deeper into the game, it's going to change its tone a bit to more sort of intense. And then kind of starting out, I don't know if you played Faster Than Light, FTL.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of like, we want it to sort of start lighter, and then as you get deeper into it, it's going to get sort of more intensive.
Okay.
So this is still something that I'm testing with, but I have a lot of music for it, and I do want the world to be rich. I do want it to have a lot of diversity, like and specific tracks to specific scenarios. So if you do encounter, like, I would love if somebody played the game and they've already played like a good amount of hours, and then they do another run and they hear something they'd never heard before. Like, to me, that's a good exciting element, at least for this game. It obviously won't work for every game format. But here, because we do have many different enemies, and all of the different enemy types are going to have different tracks, so it's I would. That seems like an exciting thing to me. So eventually, I think it's going to be pretty big. I don't know how many tracks. Probably like in the ballpark of 30 or something like that. So yeah, how about
that's long.
How about Shapez 2?
It's not gonna be that long. It's gonna be shorter than that. So you have a bigger task. But I guess maybe around 20, I think,
No, that's
something like that.
yeah, still pretty close. But it's
Yeah,
like in Shapes One, I really heard a lot of like I could hear the band influence quite strongly in that. Like to me, it sounds like music by somebody who, first of all, kind of like enjoys the band setup and context, or who
yeah.
has that kind of a background. Is that is that something you're bringing into Shapes too, or is it very different in that regard?
Yeah, in that regard, it is different. It's not like that at all, in my opinion. I don't feel like, at least, which has been like a sad thing, because I do really like that band influence. You can also hear it in like the album I made on my own, Skyworld, uh, where I got I have a like an electrical drum set, so I did actually play the drums in those. In some of the tracks, and I do really enjoy that. But yeah, I can't really. I guess I could, but it doesn't really fit the game, uh, unfortunately. Which is, or unfortunately for me, it is different, but it's still, it needs to be more vast and needs to be more like,
Ambient.
yes,
Yeah.
to fit the the art style and the idea of the game itself. It is supposed to be like bigger. It needs to sound bigger. Can Yeah,
Yeah. But in a way, that sounds kind of maybe closer to the because you mentioned the Rimworld stuff was more ambient or atmospheric, maybe.
well, not really. It is very, like, it's a space western, so there's a lot of acoustic instruments,
Mm.
and it's like a lot like space, but you kind of regress back to not having a lot of technology. So there's a lot of, like, the drums are more tribalish. So and they're very dry as well. There's not a lot of reverb on the drums, and like the acoustic guitar and stuff like that. So it's more western than space, or that's what I've done. It's probably not really what the original soundtrack was, but I mean, that's one thing with mods as well. Like, you don't have anyone saying what you can do. You can do whatever you want. So that's what was really fun with the mod as well. I do really, if someone is interested in that, I do really really recommend it, because like you already have the finished game. You have reference material for that. Like, a lot of times with indie games, they're like, we want music and we have this picture, and I was like, do you don't have a game? No, not yet. And it's like, you don't get anything. You get a lot more out of it if you just play the game, because you have a finished game, and then you can make music to it, and nobody can say that doesn't fit or anything. You can do whatever you want. So it's really good practice as well, in my opinion.
I think that's probably actually maybe perhaps the best recommendation that an aspiring video game composer can do,
Yeah,
because you have the game, you know what it's like, what it's about, and you just replace all the music with the music that you do. That I think that's
yeah,
probably not only the best way to learn how to do it, but also like you've done as well. It's a great way to demonstrate
yeah,
what you do, because somebody might listen to that, and again, everybody's going to have a different opinion. Someone's going to say, "Oh, it's not as good as the original." Somebody's going to be, "That's exactly what I would have wanted for that game."
yeah,
And now you have that in the bag, and also you have the additional layer, like you earlier mentioned, of having aspiring game devs in the pool of people who are exposed to that,
yeah,
or if not in there, maybe their friend is playing that. So that's actually super super smart, and probably one of the best things that
Yeah.
you could recommend someone do.
And also, if you don't like, if it's too difficult to mod, you can also use it as an exercise to learn, because if you don't want to post it, like you also have the original soundtrack to take inspiration from to learn in that way. So it's a really good way to learn, I think, if you want to be like a video game composer. But of course, it's even better if you can mod it, because then you also learn how things are implemented in games and the technical side of it, which can be very good to know, because if you're working for indie, that sometimes you might have to also do the technical side, because they don't have a separate technical sound designer or composer that will implement all, like, for example, you said changing the music when you get into further into the game, like a lot of the time they might not know how to do it. I don't know how it's for you. Like, are you doing the technical side, or?
Yeah, so I mean, from what I've gathered, it's in the indie world, you as the composer are also the one who puts it in. We use Fmod.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm the one putting it in Fmod and making sure the loops work the way they do. For us, the way it technically works is super simple. We don't have like any like complex multi-layer stuff. It just, first of all, in general, I don't think that's creatively or musically a better way of doing it. I think if you go multi-layer and do these kind of things, you better have, like, compositionally, it's very, I think you would need to have a reason for that. And making something interesting and also making it work musically is super convoluted, and in most cases, to my taste, worse, because it becomes less about music and more about function. So if I were to do that, I would need to come up with something super interesting. But yeah, for us, the implementation is very kind of straightforward. You have, kind of a star map scene that has music. It fades into combat. Combat is chosen by the enemy that you're facing, and so it's very, very straightforward. So I do that. But in terms of then our main coder, he's the one who links it to the actual engine. But yeah, you definitely should at least know the basics of Fmod. And even if you do sort of some kind of if you have a more interactive type of a game, then even that stuff isn't super complex. I mean, assuming if somebody plays with like a DAW to a reasonable degree, you understand layering quite a bit just by creating music. So then it's just a matter of, it's usually pretty simple logic of, oh, I want this to come in here and this to go away at this point. So yeah, one should definitely know the basics of the engine. Usually, in my experience, a lot simpler and easier than learning like a DAW properly. So
yeah, true.
How is it for Shapez 2? Is it like, do you have a lot of layering elements, or is it like just track playing per?
Yeah, it's very, very simple. It's just I'm not the one actually doing the implementation, so I mean, I have a lot of ideas of how you could do it, but the problem with Shapez, it's too big of a game, and there's too many choices. You can do so many different things. It becomes very complex very fast if you try to do any sort of adaptive system. So, and as you said, it becomes then more of a I don't know, more of a like, wow, we have adapted music rather than actually being about the music. Yeah. So
which
we
usually makes the music worse. If you're just trying to make it technically impressive for no reason, that's usually going to hurt the music or the composition.
Exactly. So we just have like a track playing. I do have some ideas of making it more interesting. Like, for example, in Rimworld, it's also very simple. It's just a track playing with a random pause in between the tracks. But we, of course, in Rimworld there's basically just two sets. It's like, is it combat or is it not, which is very simple as well. In Shapes it's even easier because there is no combat in the game, so it's just the same tracks all over, or like next to each other. Of course, I would want to have some sort of pause in between, and because it's a game that you can play for hours, and if you have the same tracks playing in like next to each other, like just like that, it can become very annoying at some point. But this is also, I've heard this is very subjective. Like some people want to have something playing all the time, and some people will want to have some silence in between, or maybe ambience in between. So I mean, yeah, the game is already like I mean, we could add it as an option to have. I hope we can do that, because I feel like it's good, because yeah, as I said, it's subjective for the listener.
Yeah,
and also we will have the option to also add in, like, for example, the Shapes 1 music as well, just because it is a game where you will be playing a long time, and the more music the better. It's not really the type of game where it needs to be context specific. Of course you could do that, but it's like, for example, there's been ideas of like when you build up your factory, the music becomes more and more like bigger and bigger, more intense. But that just means that when you have a smaller factory, you will hear like less music. And maybe some people are not really good at the game, so they will be at that stage for a long time, and they will never even hear the music for the big factory because they never get to that part.
Yeah.
So we have that issue as well, where it's complicated. It gets complicated.
No, I think your approach it sounds a lot better, because it sounds like a game that you play for a long time. You want the music to like have the ambient element of, you know, adding to the experience and not being too overbearing. But simultaneously, if it's really like monotone and always the same, it doesn't give the, you know, a sort of a nice rise and fall and momentum to the game. So you do want to have fluctuating elements there, so you feel like the game flow is, you know, staying alive and moving. So sometimes it's like a lot more chill, but sometimes like things pick up a bit and you go like, yeah. I'm, you know, building my shit over here. And sometimes you just like chill more. But yeah, the silence thing it's a super big artistic choice. Like, it's not a trivial question at all. Like, something that comes to mind that, at least, I don't know what it's like today because I haven't played the game in a long time, but Minecraft, at least originally, that would be like, that's a prime example of using music and silence. Well, obviously you have the noises of the game world, but you would be playing for a while, no music, and then something begins to play in the background. And usually it starts out pretty chill, super vibey, very artistic choice, like a super important one and a super cool one. You know, it's sort of a track comes in every once in a while and then goes away. That's I love the fact that they did that originally, because it's a very nice creative choice.
Yeah, and I think that in that game it works super well because you're always doing something. You're walking, you're hitting a tree, you're fighting, you're exploring. But in Shapes, there's the issue where sometimes you're just waiting for things to happen, and having the silence there means like it feels even less like nothing's happening. So there we have the issue where it kind of can actually be a bad thing for the game, where you always want something to be happening. You want to feel like something is happening. Of course, the factory is always working, but you might be waiting. And at that point you want there to be music because you have something. So there's yeah, the silence thing is it can be good, it can be bad. So I don't know. It's difficult.
It's super specific to the game, like and it's a
It is, yeah.
big decision to be made. But yeah, it sounds like there's quite a big of like the atmosphere and the ambience of that game is or that music for that game is a big part, and also how you create those cadences of like chill, things are going on, and then sometimes things pick up a bit, or maybe a bit even more. Beyond that.
And to talk about the adaptive thing, like trying to fit that into the game where it actually always applies, like when the factory is working harder, the music picks up, and the other way around would be super cool. It's practically impossible to do because there's so many variables. I mean, if someone could do that, that would be amazing. But like, there's so many ideas, but you can't do everything. Both technically and time-consuming thing. Like, is it actually worth doing that? Because that would be very, very difficult technically, and it would take a lot of time. Like, how much are you actually getting out of it? Will people even realize that that's happening? So yeah.
I think they would realize, and would it because I don't know how many hours. Like, it sounds like a game that you play for many, many hours, and the sessions might be long. So it means like basically the music will maybe always get sort of monotonous and also sort of tiring, because you start out slow and then the music is sort of barely there, and you get used to that, and then you go maybe to like a medium phase, more things are happening, and then you don't realize the change is happening, and then you always get used to it, and you sort of always feel like it's maybe like the revs are always at max in a sense, or maybe that's not a good way of putting it. But if you play it for hours and it's intended to be like a more of like an ambient atmospheric experience, if the music is always basically the same and it's changing slowly because you play for it for a long time, then it can be sort of always there in a sort of a same way. It can feel like a very tedious experience. So if you play for a long time, I would expect the music to sort of, fluctuate and bring different contexts there. That to me seems like something that would make a longer play experience more pleasant and interesting and ambient as well.
Yeah, and there's also the like, some people will play for hours, like hundreds of hours, even thousands, but some people might just play for 3 hours, and then they won't even hear like half of the tracks if it. So yeah, it's a game where it's difficult to try and do, and it's sort of adaptive thing to work, and it's adaptive music is cool, but it has a place. And it's not like for every game.
Yeah, for sure. So you're also you're working. You're like a quality assurance tester at Machine Games. So how do you like how do you pair that with the composition work? Like, do you find it difficult to find enough time for the music? Do you find having both is like actually beneficial for your creativity, or what kind of things have you observed with having both going on at the same time?
Well, the time thing is certainly an issue. Like, if you have a full-time job, I've never had that before. So when I was in school, it's like you're studying on full-time, but you're not really spending as many times, like as much time. I guess it depends on how you are as a student, but as a student, I did not spend 40 hours a week studying. And now that I have a job, it feels like I don't have enough time to actually compose as much as I did before, at least. And it has like I would say it has negatively impacted for the most part. I do think this means I do get like different maybe perspectives, and I have a big like longer breaks between, which can help, and I can. But otherwise, I don't recommend having a full-time job and also trying to be a composer, which is what I probably will try to at some point cut down on my hours in some either for composing or the job itself. The reason I even took this job was because I couldn't get enough work as a composer, or I guess I could, but it wasn't work that I really wanted to do, and I would rather have a full-time job with stable income to not have to stress out every day about that. It is very, very stressful to be a freelance composer. Yes, but it's something I'm trying out and seeing how for a while at least. But yeah, it has been really bad for time, at least. That's the main issue.
Yeah. No, and I also ask and bring that up because a lot of aspiring composers are gonna struggle with that because at least, and that's why I talk about the speed of writing as well. I certainly, but still, even if you're efficient, still to me, writing music takes a lot of time. It is very time consuming, and we have a kid. He's a year, a bit more than a year and a half old. So obviously, like I want to spend a certain amount of time with him per day, and then I have other responsibilities as well. So it's like it's very, very difficult to figure out that equation, because it's not only the time you allocate to the music, but also what you actually do in that time allocation. Like, and that's why I'm very try and be very conscious of the fact of not wasting any time when I'm in the studio, because I just don't have enough. There's never enough time. And like I could write music 15 hours in a row easily. Like that would be no issue. I could skip everything, like eating and everything. I would just lose myself in it. But yeah, it's definitely, and that's a lot of the time. Like, have you found that have you made any adjustments in how you like set up your life otherwise, like in terms of your like expenses and what you spend money on? Because obviously working gives you money, but the less you need money, the better it's going to be, because then you have to work less. So are there any sort of like things in that space that you've made adjustments in, or have you thought about that aspect?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, since I do have a full-time job now, I do get more money than I got before. So I haven't, the weird thing is I haven't really started spending the money I get.
That's good.
So which I sometimes like, I'm feeling like, why am I working full-time then? Because I'm not using the money. So I think for me it would make sense, and maybe as well for anyone else that tries to be a composer, to try and work fewer hours, like if they can, part-time would be better. And it would actually, I think that would be beneficial for me, because then I also get some, like, for example, I do work with like as a QA tester. I'm also like a little bit, I work on the audio side, so I am in meetings with the audio team at Machine Games, so I do get a lot of like experience from that and ideas, and so that really would be beneficial for me. But right now I don't really have enough time to actually compose, because I, yeah, I'm spending most of my time at work, and when I get home, I'm tired, and I don't really have the energy to compose. It's mostly on weekends. I do my composing, and that's not really enough time for this project. But maybe for other projects, yeah, exactly. It depends on the project as well.
Yeah. No, that's it. I always say, like, figure out what you need and just do that amount that allows you to, cover your bases, or get you the basics of what you need, and then allocate all of the rest of the time to doing music. Because like you said, you're going to be tired from the other other work that you do. So the answer is spend as little as you need to, and that means then you can figure out how much you need to work to cover those expenses, and then just the rest of the time do what it is that you want to do. Obviously that's a different thing if you want to, like, if you have other ambitions in terms of like saving money for something, or but those tend to be pretty low priorities for composers or creative types anyway. It usually tends to be the case that you'd rather live a life you enjoy, and you're doing the things you want to do instead of owning a house or a car. So that's at least one solution to do it. But I always ask these kind of things because different people find it different. Some people can do both, but it's an individual thing. So it's important to not pay that much attention to how other people are doing it, unless you're going to learn something from that approach. But some people can pull it off. Some people are completely happy writing 4 hours a week or an hour every day or whatever it is, and they can pull it off. But people like me can't do it.
I think I could possibly do it. Like, I'd be happy with not as many hours per week, but the problem right now is I do have a project with a deadline, and I need to write music. I need to do certain hours per week to actually do it, finish in time. And that's something like I might be happier to, instead of having this project, doing my own projects or my own personal projects on the side. I'm just not really sure what I want to be doing in the future. Like, I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't even have a 1-year plan. So it's more about figuring things out still. And like, if I wanted to do music as a profession, I would probably not have this job that I have right now, because I didn't really. I guess the problem with having music as a profession, when you're more of like, you want to create and compose, like there's a lot of times where you're not able to do what you want to do. Like, you have to make certain changes to a track that you don't want to do, or you have to do certain themes or things that you. Yeah, I mean, that's not for everyone. Like, some people might really enjoy that, but I don't know if it really is for me. I think I would be happier just making my own music, which is maybe the path I'm on right now, that I won't be doing music for games, even though I enjoy making music for games. But I don't know if I enjoy the part of making the music, or if I actually enjoy the part of making the music for the game itself. I'm not really sure. I think I enjoy the music making more, of course. It was more like a natural path, because I've played so many games. I know games. I make music. Let's just put it together. Well, like, that makes sense. But maybe it didn't make sense for me, because I haven't really enjoyed it as much as I thought I would. And maybe I'm going towards more the path of being more of a musician or composer in general, not just for games. But that the problem with that is if you want to do that for a profession, it's super difficult. It's even more difficult than making music for games because that's a lot of marketing, and trying to be a producer is then it also means that you sometimes you're not able to do what you want because you need to do what's trendy. So it's a whole kind of worms that I think I'm just more happy as doing it as a hobby, I think. And
yeah, I don't necessarily see any reason why you couldn't combine all of the things. I mean, it's definitely hard, but much of that comes down to who you work with. So it's absolutely
true.
possible to find, developers and projects where you kind of get to do your own thing and you can apply your own vision and then combine that with the game. So it's really maybe more of about the equation of finding the perfect kind of marriage between you and a project.
True.
And it sounds like it doesn't necessarily even have to be a game. Like it could be a movie or something else. And I think again that's a mark of a creative. Like you want to create your own things, and you don't, as long as it satisfies like your interest and curiosity in terms of what you work with, then you're good to go. But I think what you've done really well is like when you did that music mod for Rimworld, it's something you wanted to do, and you did it, you put it out there, and it magnified it. What's the word? It kind of things gravitated towards you as a result of what you put out there. And it's not only that you put out music, but you also communicate to people who you are through that work, so they know what to expect, they know what they're sort of getting. So I think, it sounds to me like if you keep, putting into the world the things that you want to create, you're going to kind of magnetize or things are going to gravitate towards you as a result of, what you do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But the issue can then be that, like, for example, now that I'm making music for Shapez too, and people will think that, okay, this is what this person will want to make, but maybe it's not. Maybe I want to make something else, or people will come to me for Rimworld mod music that I made, but that's not really what I want to make anymore. That was when I was 19. I'm a lot older now. That was like half a lifetime ago. So that can also be the issue where
the branding is definitely an issue, but I'd say that also gets fixed by keeping doing the same thing you've done before. You take a new idea and you put out a new album, and obviously that's going to alienate some people, but again, certain people are going to gravitate towards that. Like I don't think there is a one solution that is going to satisfy all aspects in a way. So you just got, like, you always need to keep communicating to people who and what you are, and through that, some people are going to be like, oh, I don't get this thing, and they're going to go away. But some people are going to be like, okay, I understand what he's doing. I love that. And there's no reason why, originally, like, why people loved the Rimworld music mod, and why they loved Shapez, and why they loved Shapez 2, and why they're going to love a new album of yours. It's always going to, different people are going to gravitate to different things, and different projects are going to come as a result of that. I would really also dread to be, if somebody said my name, they would immediately say, oh, this is the kind of music he writes. Because, I mean, it depends on, like, to me, a lot of my music is very similar in many ways. Like, underneath all the instrumentation and all the production, etc., the essence of it, the soul of it is similar. But it can take certain types of people to kind of see that. Not everybody sees that. And especially in the music industry, a lot of the project managers that you talk to, they don't necessarily understand that world at all. Like, they just say, okay, I need something that combines cyberpunk with
Yeah.
this, and then
Yeah.
have you done it before? And then I say, no, I haven't done that before, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, then fuck off. But it's like, I can do that. I've never done it before. I would
Yeah.
love to make a demo for you, but that's already like, most people are going to say no to that. But the good thing about just like creating a catalog, creating a discography of stuff that you want to create, that's just like you're basically communicating to the world what you can do. And somebody who picks you up for a project they don't have to subscribe to all of these albums. They don't have to love everything that you do. They just hear that one thing that you've done, and they're like, hey, I love that. Could you, what would you do for my project if like I'm going for a similar vibe? And then you can say, well, this is what I would do. I would take that and do something differently. And if they love your music, they're probably going to say yes either way, probably in most cases.
Yeah.
So I would just say like keep the same mentality of creating what you want to create, because that's how you tell people who you are and what you do. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it makes sense. Cool. How do you feel with pressure? Because when there's money involved, when there's a product involved, there's always a lot more pressure and stress. And are you good enough? Because with the mod and with that kind of things, with my album, there's no pressure. I can do freely. I don't need to worry. But when there's a project, there's the pressure and the stress is always in the back of my mind, and it makes things worse, in my opinion, which is very strange, because it's like ironic that when I'm doing something for money, it becomes worse. It's just not as good.
Yeah, I think the difficulty there is, again, if the project puts you in a place where you don't creatively feel like you have anything to give, that can be difficult to overcome. Although I would say, again, I don't have enough like a track record or experience even in the industry to speak to that. I've definitely done many things that I don't like feel like doing right now, creatively and otherwise. But I think for me, what helps the most there is just curiosity. Like, I try and flip it on itself, or sort of invert the whole thing. Like, if I were to do this in a way that's interesting, what would that look like? And I refuse to not be curious about it and just keep exploring. Like, that might mean, yes, like you need to hammer away and just keep, creating the content, creating the music. But even if I'm trying to like work in the back of my head, how could I make this still somehow interesting? I'm still always working on that, because I can always jump back in to the tracks and change a sound to something that makes it, interesting and different in a sort of a way. But so that's maybe relating to, your situation a bit. But in terms of like stress, for me, obviously, if you're really tight on money, that's really tough. It's really tough to overcome, because if you have to pay rent and bills and food and everything else, if you're in survival mode, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to be creative. That needs to be solved somehow, and that's definitely the biggest thing for me. And then the other one, the big stressor, is if I just don't have enough time. Like, it does bear down upon me quite a lot. But at least with Breachway, what I'm doing right now, we've had a lot of time, so and we still will have a lot of time probably in the future. So that's not an issue, and I probably in the future I will probably be pretty selective of that. Like, if the time schedule is super crazy tight, and I know it's gonna get super tight, then probably not going to take that project. but again, that's I can work really fast. It's simply a matter of like once you know how much time you have, then it's easy to link the knowledge of how long it roughly will probably take me to get there, and then just executing towards that. But if you suddenly get like a change in a time schedule, that's very tough for me. For me, it's maybe more tough on a day-to-day basis to, because I know like, okay, now I have 4 hours to work on music, because I would love to work, like I said, 15 hours. So it's about like mentally letting go of the lack of freedom. Like if you get fixated on it, then it becomes a very dark spiral for me. So I have to say, like, this is what I have. Do you love music or do you not love music? Because now you have a chance to work on it for 4 hours and enjoy it. And that's life. And, you know, get over it, Markus. And then I'm just gonna, you know, take what I can. But any other elements than that, I don't really struggle like with expectations. If people have certain expectations of like what type of music I write, I don't really give a shit too much. it's
Oh, really?
no like I don't struggle. Like if I have a clarity of vision of like what music I want to write for a project, I trust that. I know like that if I know anything in life, it's those kind of things. Like I've had many, you know, questions and insecurities about a lot of things, but once I see a vision and it clicks, and like you said, maybe you have that one track that you know hits the spot, then I trust that. I trust that vision. There's something there, and then I'm just going to execute to the best of my ability to make it as good as possible. But because if you wonder like, could I have done this differently? It's an endless cycle of questioning that you can, because there's a million different ways to make the soundtrack for, you know, Shapez 2. But whenever you do latch on to something and you're like, yeah, this works, then that's true, and you pursue that and you cherish that, you protect it and you develop it. And I don't, and one of the reasons is, you know, I love the music that I write. Like it's if I'm writing something bad, it's going into the trash immediately. But if I keep it, then there's something there, and I genuinely like the music that I do end up releasing. So I just try and make it the best it can be, and that's the only thing I can do, really. So
is that like that for every project? Because I mean, like,
well, first of all, you're in a different position because you already have this released game, and somebody might have expectations or ideas about Shapez.
That's one thing. Like I was gonna say as well. Like I've seen comments like, for example, like, oh, I hope Shapez 2 soundtrack is even better than Shapez 1 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I need to make better music than I did. And I like, if I don't do that, then I'm gonna disappoint people. So there's some stress about that as well. And then I also know that it's going to be different because it's in a different theme, and people might be disappointed about that. And I do think about it too much, probably more than I should. And I should, as you said, just trust my ability to create music for a certain game, and I shouldn't really be worrying too much about what people will think. If I like it, then if I think it's good, if the developer think it's good, like it's good enough then. Even if some people will not like it, that's always going to happen. There will always be people that won't like your music. And now as well with the Shapez 2, it's going to be even bigger than Shapez 1, so it's going to be even more like bigger audience. There's going to be negative comments, of course. There will always be that, and I shouldn't worry too much about it. But I unfortunately I do. I worry about it, and I want to please everyone, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, there's always going to be people who say, you know, one way or the other. There are going to be people who absolutely love what you'll do for it, even if, let's say you're completely neutral about it. It's like, yeah, it's okay. there's still going to be people who love it, and there's still going to be people who hate it, no matter what you do. Even if it's the best thing in the world, like you think this is the best piece of music I've ever written, I'm so proud of this, very nice. Then you go and read comments, and it's like, wow, this is complete horseshit. And you're like, well, okay, there it is. Well, first of all, you need to understand that you magnify the negative way more than the positive.
Yeah.
So even if you read, you know, if it's mostly positive, the negative ones are going to hit you harder because you know how to hurt yourself the most. And you're going to interpret every negative thing in the worst possible light. Whereas if you read something positive, you might think, oh, well, maybe they have like a, I don't know, limited view of the work. They don't really, you know, mean that in the way that I think they do, etc. So that's one thing to understand. And also, like, it's really important to know that even if you do your absolute best work and you're super happy with it, there's still always going to be the people who don't like it for whatever reason, because you don't know their age, you don't know what music they like. Like, they might like completely different types of music. So obviously they're not going to like what you do. Like, it's not a matter of whether you did something well or not, but it's a matter of them simply not liking the general category of what you did. And okay, this person might be angry, pissed off. Maybe they just like had a divorce yesterday, or maybe they're a 13-year-old kid who, you know, have problems at home. You never know who the person is either. So that's why I don't focus on that, because there's jack shit you can do about it. But you can only control what you do in the studio when you're writing the music, you know. And that's I'll just put all of my effort into that. And it seems very clear to me that you have a strong intuition of whether you're making it better or worse. And that's one of the most important skills that artists, creatives can have. Like in these interviews that I've done so far, that seems to be like, if you have a strong vision and you know if you're making it better or worse, that's like the most important thing. Am I improving it or am I not? That's the only thing you can do. And you do that until you run out of time or money or whatever else, and then it's done. So that would be my answer.
Yeah. One thing regarding that, making something better or worse. The one thing that often happens to me is like I start with something. Like I have, for example, I can start with like a synth arpeggio, and then I work that into some kind of track, and then I just realized that the arpeggio is kind of ruining the track. So I just remove the thing that actually created the track itself, which is something quite funny. But that's one thing you have to learn as well. Like the thing that might have created the track is actually not good enough for it, or it doesn't work in it, and that often happens. And I think that's quite funny. I think
I just had that yesterday. I had this kind of, it's like a rhythm sequency thing, and then I was like, oh, that's super interesting sound. And I did actually, I do keep half of it in a way, but it's sort of it's a pretty full spectrum sound. So I thought it was already the bass sound that I was looking for, as well as having the kind of a high end element. But then I realized, like, wow, that low end really sounds like shit, and it's not actually low end to begin with, and it's kind of like maybe a bit thin and crappy sounding. So, but yeah, it's like and this is why I always say, like, it doesn't matter where you start, because if you're focusing on am I making it better or not, you're always inching closer to the right thing. And this doesn't only apply to music, but it applies to life. Like, if somebody's thinking like, what should I do in life, you could say basically start anywhere. Like, but I would say that people's intuition of what is interesting to them is far better than what they give it credit for. So I'd say just listen to your, like, what's your first answer, intuition, go with that and just keep iterating. And that's often the case, like, you get into an industry and then you do a job for a while, but then you realize, like, let's say you wanted to be an actor, but then you realize I actually enjoy writing a lot more. And then you get into writing, but then you realize, oh, actually I want to direct. more than anything. And then you're like, just focus on, gradual improvements. And it's unreasonable to expect to know where you want to end up when you haven't learned what these things are about. So really the only thing you can do is follow your intuition, go there, make it the best it can be, learn, and then go to the next thing. And the process of music is exactly the same thing. So like you said, you can start with the sound and think, oh, this is the shit, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Then 2 days later, you're like, wow, I don't even have that element in here anymore.
Yeah.
That quite often happens. I have a lot of like synthy sounds for this project, and it's often the case that you start writing something and then after a while you realize, wow, that's a really bad sound. And you just ditch it altogether. If we touch like inspiration, we obviously talked about the band element being like a big thing for you. I guess I usually split this into like two sections of talking about who artists, bands or composers who specifically inspire you. But then we also usually talk about non-musical things that inspire you. But in your case, I would. You obviously mentioned a couple of sources of musical inspiration. But do you have any notable bands or artists or composers we haven't touched on who inspire you?
I don't think I really have like specific ones. Like I do have a lot of bands that I really, or artists that I listen to a lot, that I know that have inspired me. And like two of them, which they're a bit different, but one is Avicii and the other one is Linkin Park, which are a bit different. But
Avicii was Swedish, right?
Yeah, he was Swedish. Yeah. But like in like genre, they're a bit different.
Yeah.
So, but I guess those two are big artists that did, and of course there's a lot of other ones as well. Like I listen to a lot of rock from the classical rock, which is probably where the band influence comes from. And of course, like other game music, but not like anything specific, more like in general, from games, different games. I don't really like, when I make music, I'm not trying to like take inspiration from one, like some specific thing. I try to more like bundle it up. Or that's what I like to think. Maybe I don't do that, but maybe subconsciously I'm taking more inspiration from something else. But that's how I at least work with that. For example, for Shapez 2, like I had to listen to different, or at least, or not had to, but for research I listened to.
I had to listen to music.
Yeah, listen to different soundtracks for game soundtracks for like that are more spacey or like sci-fi games, and try to actually recreate some like that style as well. Like for demos, I just actually took one piece from the game and then tried to recreate in my own style just for a demo, that like just for research, like learning purposes, not actually to use for the game. So that's what I've done. For example, I did Factorio, FTL that we talked about, and I don't remember the other ones. I did a Terraforming Mars, which is actually a board game, but there's a game of that, and Stellaris as well. Yeah. So that kind of things I do for inspiration, for like a project specifically.
Yeah,
but
I'm very same in the way that it's very hard to like. I'm like taking in everything all the time, and then I just take the things that I enjoy and like. But I'm really, and this is a thing I would actually prefer to be better at, because I love giving people credit where credit is due. So I'm horrible at remembering all of the artists and movies and games,
Yeah,
but I know like there's I know immediately when you hear something interesting, you're just like magnetized by it, and you take what you like. And it's yeah, I'm really bad at naming a lot of names, because there's
yeah,
so many different artists that inspire me, and so many, you know, soundtracks of all kinds of sorts. So it can be tough to name all of those.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
When by the way, you mentioned Avicii. I was just did because obviously what happened to him was super sad. Did you have any, like when that happened? Did that sort of hit you hard as a fan of his music? And did he make you think about? I don't know. What did you have any thoughts when that happened?
yeah. I mean, he. What I've understood, I think there's a documentary about him coming out soon. I don't know if it's out yet, but it should be out soon, I think. So I'm probably gonna I will watch that. But think he was more like he was more of a producer more than like a stage artist, and I think that all of the touring uh, and that kind of things really destroyed his mental. And it, I would probably be the exact same, and that's very much what I would not want to do, like having to tour around the world. Very stressful environment, and that's, I mean, that made me realize, of course, that I would never want to do that. Like I want to be like the guy in the corner making music that nobody knows about.
Yeah,
That's more what I would want to do. And it is sad that commercializing that type of music, or commercializing anything like that, can destroy a person. And it is sad.
yeah. No, it was like I've obviously never met the guy, and I know strikingly little about him, but just even the few pictures that I saw, even the few clips that I saw, I could see a lot in him that I could relate to, on the because he seemed super like sensitive to me. Like it seemed like if you
Yeah,
put that person in a like a hyper dynamic,
yeah,
intense social environment, it would
yeah,
be like not a place for that kind of person. And again, I didn't know him at all, so I could be speaking out of my ass, and I don't mean any disrespect in that regard. But it seemed like I just had this feeling that I could feel and understand a bit of what he I just related to that somehow. And obviously, like, I've never enjoyed any level of success whatsoever, but even like a normal
uh,
person's version of that, like going to, because I hate nightclubs. I hate just the well, okay, hate is a strong word, but that is not a place for me, let's put it that way. And you know, he obviously, because he would always, I would presume, be at the center of the party. And
yeah,
there would be a lot of kind of forces around him that would be pulling him in all kinds of directions. And to me, he seemed like a dude who didn't fundamentally care about those things a lot, which probably
yeah,
mixed him up quite a bit. So yeah, it's
yeah. I saw like a small. I don't think it was. It was like there was another documentary as well about him. It's called True, I guess. I think. Yeah, and I watched that. If I remember correctly, I haven't seen it. There was a long time I saw it, but like he had to consume alcohol to even be able to do those shows. Like it's if you need that, or drugs or anything, to actually be able to do your job, then I don't think you should be doing that job. I don't. I feel bad. I feel very bad that he was put through that, and a lot of things were like just agreed to do, even though he didn't really want to do them. Like some of the touring that he did, like the big artists that they do the touring thing is like it's insane. I don't understand how they can do it. And that's the way they make money. That's the thing. That's the reason they have to do it, because streaming gives you not enough money. But I feel like they also like I don't really understand why they need that much money, to be honest. Why?
That's another good question, which goes back to the topic of know what it is that you actually need and just do enough of whatever you need to do to get that money, and then allocate all of the rest of the time to doing what you actually want to be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely can be a big trap.
It's also like a Finnish mindset that there's no point in making that much money because you lose it anyway for taxes.
Yeah. So the solution is to move to Finland.
Yeah.
So you don't.
There's no point in making too much money there.
Yeah, half of it is all going to go to the government anyway.
Yeah. Over half, I think.
Well, it depends on how much you make. Like if you make the big bucks, yeah, then
Yeah.
for sure. But and again, people's idea of what is a lot of money is very different based on
true.
the person. Certainly, if you're a musician who's barely been getting by for like over 10 years now, then my idea of a lot of money is very different to
for sure.
People.
I'm not like materialistic at all. Like I have to be honest, my gear is too bad, and it's not good enough. I should get better. Like my speakers are like $20 speakers from but it's also because I've been in a temporary apartment. But even though I'm in a temporary apartment, I could still get better speakers. But I don't, because I don't know, I'm too cheap. But even though, I mean, yeah.
You definitely should get better
I definitely
speakers.
should. Yes. But the thing is with, I use mostly headphones for mixing, which is good for some parts, but you also like it's the biggest issue is the bass, for sure. Like to mix the bass, you should really have better speakers, and you can always do the car test, which I do. Like if it sounds good in a car, it will sound good anywhere. I guess it's what some people say, but that might not be true. And of course, it also depends on where your music will be played. Like if it will be in a club, then of course you need to test it with big speakers. But my music will not be played in a club, so it's not as important. More important that it will sound good on big speakers, and that's something I really am lacking right now. But when I move apartments, which is going to be in summer, I will get better speakers.
Yeah, you definitely should. Now, if you can get some acoustic treatment, or at least like well, preferably both, but monitor optimizing software as well, then I highly recommend that. Helps a lot. Talking about your setup, what do you have there? And it's like
I have my bed there.
Yeah, that's bed. I maybe see some keyboards.
Yeah. I have one MIDI keyboard here. That's about it. That's it. That's everything I have.
Yeah. No.
Well, I have this microphone and yeah. But I do have more stuff actually. But not here. It's in Finland in my parents' home because I don't have room for it here. But once I get a bigger apartment, I will move that over. So I have a bigger MIDI keyboard, like a full size, and then I have the electric drum set, and then some like acoustic instruments, like some shakers and stuff. So I could record that kind of stuff, which is not really needed for Shapez. It's not really a shaker kind of music, but yeah.
No, I love it because it like you just don't, especially today, like you just don't need that much to actually create music. I mean, like, and in terms of like the software we have access to today, uh, is so good, and also it speaks to like creativity and the artistry of what musicians can do. That you don't need much. It's about your vision. It's about you know what you creatively put together, and making music is not about gear. It's about
No,
other things. Although
yeah.
it's gear is amazing and it can make your job certainly easier and better, but that's you
It
know
can also make it more complicated,
that too. Yeah, for sure.
and sometimes it makes it harder. So if you have a something that works for you, then maybe just stick with it, because at least if you don't have time, like if you have time to learn new stuff, then sure, but you have to actually put time in to learn new gear to make it actually better. Because I had a keyboard before this one which was a lot better because it worked better with the software I use, and this one doesn't as well. And I guess it could, but I have to learn how I can utilize it better, and that takes a lot. It takes time, and it's time that I don't really have right now to put into learning. Like in between projects, maybe you can do that kind of stuff. But like in your middle of a project and you get new gear and you're like, this isn't working, it's crashing my stuff. And like I had a lot of issues with software recently as well. Like I updated things and stuff didn't load, and I had to spend days trying to figure out what was the issue.
Mm.
So in the middle of a project, maybe don't update anything, just keep it as it is.
That's the
If it's
rule.
working,
Yeah.
just keep it until you have some extra time, then you can update stuff.
That is like an absolute must.
Yeah.
Never update in the middle of a project. Once it's done, then you can do it, and
I learned it the hard way.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like I love software because it's there and gone really quickly, and you can have multiple instances of it, and etc. But when something goes wrong with software, there's close to nothing you can do. Like you can obviously you have the support from the company, etc. But if there is like an issue that they don't have a solution to, you're just fucked. Like it's a no-go. It's really I actually have one software issue with one of the libraries that I'm using for this soundtrack. There's some weird thing where it is slightly lagging. Like it's like it has an internal clock compared to the DAW's clock. So the DAW is basically it runs in its own time, and the library is slightly sort of beginning to lag behind it. So and it's driving me crazy, and they don't know what's causing it. And it's like it's infuriating me. And if I change the tempo of the session, the library will still stay in the same internal timing. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I had the issue where I just updated all my plugins, and I updated to VST. Or they lost VST2 supported, but it didn't support VST2 anymore. Which I, for some reason, have used, and it broke everything. So I had to revert back, and I had to revert back everything I updated. And the issue was that it's not easy to revert back. It was not like, click here to go to this version. You had to go to their forums and find the right download thing. And then if you actually try to get support from them, they always had outdated solutions. So the solution was not actually the correct one for now. They were just outdated. So I just couldn't figure it out. But then, of course, the forums helped me for sure. They all also said that, the solution is outdated. Use this instead. There's always some helpful guy that...
Yeah. I mean, bless those people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I'm not at all that kind of a person. But I love the fact that those people are out there and they're just like on the forums every day, and they're getting super techie and geeky about these things. And then like a sorry person like me comes along like, hey, I got this issue. And they're like, I know what it is.
Yeah.
That's bless them.
Yeah. Yes. Bless them indeed.
Do you have like outside of music, like where do you pull inspiration from? Do you have like things from everyday life or other art forms that inspire you?
Uh, I don't know. It depends on. Oh, it depends on the track I'm making, of course. Like for example, for Skyworld, it was a lot like my home in Finland, which is very peaceful. It's on an island. So my parents though they don't live in Paran anymore. They live in Nauvo. I don't know if you know what that
Yeah.
is. Yes,
Yeah.
so that's like an island outside, which you can only get by a ferry. And there's like during the winter, there's like 1,000 people living on that island, and 30 people in the village that they live, and they have like an ocean view as well. So it's very very peaceful. So for that album, it was a lot of inspiration from that area overall. The thing is, sometimes it feels peaceful, sometimes it feels dead. So it's like
Two sides of the same coin.
yeah, exactly. Mm.
Yeah, especially when you're young, it's like it's mostly about the dead aspect.
Yeah,
And then when you're older, it's you want the
more
peace.
peaceful. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Cool. Is it when it comes to thinking about what I could touch on still with the time that we have, but I guess I mean we could go into like in terms of your like work life creativity balance. I mean we I guess we already touched on that a fair bit, but with because you have the limited time now to write music, is there anything that has like helped you either either make time for music writing or make the time that you use for music writing sort of more efficient? Is there any like any kind of practical tips or techniques that have helped you, or maybe like a mental shift that has, because you presumably you still have to make the project advance somehow, so what kind of things
Yeah.
are helping you to do that, or are you just
I
like brute forcing your way forward?
Yeah, this is something that I would need advice on, because I'm struggling with this as well. I feel like sometimes I just want to chill on a weekend. And even though making music is fun, it's still work. And um, I think one thing uh, I did do is like I don't have enough time now for the project. I won't be able to finish it in time, so I'm getting help from a friend, composer, which like when you're two people working on the same project, if you find someone that you can work well with, that gives you inspiration as well. Like if that person is sending you stuff and you're like, then you get inspiration from that, and then you start working because you feel like yeah you're like in a team. Like sometimes when you're a freelance composer, you can feel a bit alone, and like you're not like you're doing everything yourself. So it can be good to get to work with someone, either sending feedback or like sending music for feedback, or maybe someone that can help you with certain parts. That's certainly, to have someone that is actually pushing me, not pushing me, but um, like you can have ideas between, like talk about ideas, and that can make you like more enthusiastic to actually do the work. And because when you're isolated, it becomes very easy for me, because I'm a bit of a procrastinator. So I'm a bit like, I'll do this in an hour, and then I'll just do this, and then okay, oh shit, okay, now I have to go to sleep. There goes the time. I'll do it tomorrow. So if you have someone that sends you like something, you get reminded of it, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I was supposed to do that. Like that helps me. I mean, of course, this is gonna be different for everyone. Like Some people will get that urge to make music from something else. Like maybe you go for a walk, and after that you get ideas, like completely like erase everything from your brain, like empty your brain, and then the ideas start flowing again. Because I think like for me at least, if I'm doing something else, like if I'm playing a game or I'm watching something, my mind is occupied. It's like blocking off the ideas that I have. So I think that is for me the worst thing I can do. If I want to actually start working, I should like try to find a way to like empty my mind, and then I get ideas.
Yeah. No, it's creating perspective and separation to the work. Definitely a big part. And I think if you can have someone you write with and the chemistry works and it makes sense, that's like a superpower basically, because people just think so differently. So even if you're stuck, they're gonna see it completely differently, and that's gonna bounce you to a different place. So I would, I would love to write with other people as well, but I still have so much stuff that I feel like I need to get out of my system the way that I want to get it out of my system, and I would presume at some point, once I got that sufficiently out of my system, I would actually feel pretty empty, and then hopefully write with somebody else. I actually have written a bit, but that's more like singer or like artist music type stuff rather than composition. But it can be super cool when it works really well. So that's a really good tip to consider.
Yeah, especially when you're out of ideas and you're like, I don't know what to do here. And if you send it to someone that's like similar to you, like you work well with, you send that to them, they'll probably easily come up with an idea. It's very easy to come up with. For me, I feel like if someone sends me over something and they have like a bass and they don't have an idea for like a melody or something like that, it's for me it's very easy to come up with in that scenario. And I don't really know why that's the case. I don't know if that's for everyone or it's just for me. And but it can work really well. And even if that person won't use that melody, they might get ideas from that melody I create. So that, it can help, like the block thing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very lucrative. And it's a very different thing, because if you come up with like a bass thing, now if you're coming up with a melody in relation to that, you're sort of invested in that original idea also, but also it's not new to you, it's already familiar. But when somebody brings you something, you're like, oh, I know what that is, or I know what that at least looks like to me, and this is what I would do in relation to that. And then, like you said, it kind of the effects of it compounds, because even if they're not going to use what you made, it made them create something else, and then again you can look at that, and then it's just like it kind of repopulates itself endlessly, potentially. So that's really good. Is there any, before I transition into our two last questions, I wanted to ask you about I know you said you don't really use a ton of stuff and gear, but presumably you're using some software stuff for Shapez too. But is there, you could answer this like, what are some of the sound libraries or virtual instruments that you're using for that? Or if you want to go another way, you could also touch on like, is there any piece of software or gear, virtual instrument that you're specifically excited about right now? Is there something you're using or getting hyped up about?
Well, I use a lot of, probably like a lot of else does, like the Native Instruments Complete. There's a lot of things in that. The one plugin I use there is it's called Hybrid Keys. It has a lot of yeah, it's hybrid keys. So it's a bit, sometimes it sounds very like acoustic, but it's also a little bit synthy, and you have like two different sounds that you can blend between, or you can choose the sound as well. But I really like to work with presets. I'm not someone who like designs the sound from scratch. Of course, I instead then change the sound with effects instead of changing the source. Which I can then, like, if sometimes if I'm not happy with the sounds, but I'm happy with the effects, I can then change the preset without changing the effects, which I sometimes do as well. And for like the synthy sounds, I use like a rompler, it's called, like Nexus. There's a lot of good presets to start from, and then of course, as I said before, I change the sound almost fundamentally with effects and yeah, processing. That's how I do it. Because for me, the designing a sound from scratch that's so different than composing. I feel like that's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And some people enjoy that. Some people would rather want a good sound and then maybe change it a little or manipulate it to what they want. Like, for example, in a band, you're not designing a guitar sound from scratch, really. You have the guitar sound and then you add effects on it. Like, yeah, like that's how I see about it with using presets. So I'm not how would you say, I'm not embarrassed to use presets. Like, I'm not, oh, you're not designing your own sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is still a topic that is too under discussed. It's like, if you if you went back to the time of whatever composer, classical era, it's like they are using presets, and those presets are called violin, viola, etc.
Exactly.
So these are and I always emphasize the fact that I make quite a lot of demos on YouTube of virtual instruments and sample libraries, and I always emphasize that being a sound designer is its own job, and to be a great sound designer is very difficult, and it's its own thing, and it's very super difficult to do really, really well, and should be very commendable and respected. And I fully realize as a composer that my sound design abilities, it depends on what you're doing, but are maybe at best they are good at the good level. But if I'm writing music and if I'm using sounds, good is not good enough for me. Like, I want to use extraordinary sounds. I want to use like fantastic sounds, super inspiring, well balanced, well made, interesting things. So again, same as you, I have no shame in that. Like, I want to use the work of great sound designers so that I can do the best job as a composer. And also, like you said, it's like you take a preset from something, you immediately hear what you like and what you don't, or what's going to work and what doesn't. And then you're going to go in there and you're going to tweak it to your liking. And then it's basically a very different thing. You're inspired by the original sound, but now it's a different thing. So I think first and foremost, this is the approach that composers should embrace, because probably most composers are not great sound designers. Some are. It's super rare. And that's, again, I respect the hell out of it. But, it's a rare combination. And, I have no ego about the fact that did I create every sound from like basic waveforms or whatever form of synthesis I have available to me. I don't have any ego about that, because I only care about creating the best music that I can, and I want to make it sound the best that it can. So, and again, it's just because you have a great sound, that's not the same thing as having a great piece of music. Like, you're never going to press one key and then have a fantastic piece of music come out of the speakers. So you still have to compose with it, massage it, put it into a context. And even if, we give, even if we give you and me the same sounds and they're like top notch, interesting sounds, we're still going to do different things with them. So they don't do anything on their own, or they don't do much at all on their own in the context of writing like proper music. So this is still like some kind of a taboo, or
it is. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like crippled at home, sort of, using sounds, and then are like, well, is this original enough, or should I do something myself? And it's like that has almost nothing to do with writing great music. So just
how do you feel with loops then?
Again, this depends. I would break it down into percussive loops versus melodic. I don't personally use any melodic loops whatsoever. Again, I don't like. For me, it's about writing a good piece of music. So if it serves me in that pursuit, then I'll use it. But usually just the melodic, or even let's say there's like a harmony going on there, let's say, or like a chordal pattern. Even if there's something there, it's usually not flexible enough for me to work in ways that I want to work with.
Yeah.
So that's really the limiting factor. If I can pitch it around, sure, but usually that's too slow for me. It becomes more difficult and convoluted to use, let's say, if it's a chord progression or a melody of sorts. Then no, the closest to that I use are, let's say, vocal lines. Like if there is like a vocal library that is full of these different sort of melody lines, I might use those in different pieces, but even those need to work in the context of the composition that I already have. So it's like, and you have to do a bunch of things to them to make them work in the thing. So I might take like a part of a certain vocal phrase and then combine it with something else. So I'm basically writing with it. I know what I want to do with it. It's not like I'm just dumping it in there as it is. So that's probably the closest to melodic loops that I use. Percussive ones are let's say morally a lot easier, because percussion is just rhythm and percussive loops you can glue and construct in ways that basically it's just a different way of combining rhythm together than it would be to say, like, I'm really good at playing rhythm on the keyboard a lot. Like, I'm a drummer. That's what I do better than any other instrument stuff. But you have to recognize also the fact with loops, especially when it comes to rhythmic stuff, is that it's also probably performed by a professional level player. So their performance is probably going to be better than yours. So that's also something worth considering, because even if I were to program it myself with the exact same sounds, it might still be missing certain things like groove, feel, or certain things. So if that's there, I'll go for it, because again, my goal is to make the music sound the best it possibly can. But I almost never use like just like one note pressing loop, but I use loop like micro components. So I might be using like one note from a loop, which is basically the same as it would be to program in a MIDI editor. But again, it depends on your definitions a lot. But again, my point, even if somebody used melodic loops or they used chord progression loops, they on their own are not going to make a great piece of music. So even if somebody did that, they would still need to put it into a context of a great piece of music, which is the primary job and of a composer, and that's really, really hard to do. So I don't really care about the methods. If the piece of music is fantastic, then it is fantastic. and I would have no qualms with it otherwise. If they lied about how they did it, then that would be like a separate conversation of its own.
Yeah.
Because why would you need to do that? Because clearly then you think about the process differently than I do. But I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree with what you've said about that. I sometimes use, as you said, as well, like percussive, especially like shakers. That is, even if you're a drummer, that kind of thing is sometimes very difficult to get correct, like the groove, as you said. But and with the melodic things, I do sometimes use like arpeggios, which are like finished arps. But then, of course, I can change what notes they're playing.
Yeah. So they could be like sequences.
Exactly. So it's still a bit the same as than using presets, because you still have the option to change the ARP itself and the note it's playing, the speed, all of that. So it's not like it's completely a finished loop. It's more of a, as you said, sequence that you can change. So in that case, it's I don't know. I feel like it's completely fine to do.
And that to me, that sounds like inspiration. Like
exactly.
You hear something that you find interesting, and then you go in there and tweak it, and you create something quite usually fundamentally very different to the source of it. Like oftentimes with these sound design, like different libraries where you find great presets, it's like you hear what you want to use and you tweak it to your liking, and it takes you in a very, very different direction. It is very much like there's very little difference between that and listening to, like if I'm watching a movie or watching a series or listening to a game, playing a game, and I get inspired by that soundtrack, and then I go and create something based on that inspiration. The same thing happens when I hear an interesting preset. It's like, or a similar thing. It's like, ooh, that I like that. I don't like that. I'll take that and try and do something with it. And they're like small, tiny snippets of inspiration. And I take that and go and do something different with it. So, yeah, it's...
and it's even another layer with it actually having to fit with the game you're making. So it is just like, yeah, the preset is good, but for the game I'm making, it needs to have more of this kind of sound. So you need to change it for that. So it's not just for the composition itself, it's also for the game you're making. So it adds another layer, which means like you're still creating something completely new. And that is the goal, and also something that can fit the game that you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And that never happens randomly. Like I always think about when somebody asks me that, it's like, yes, I could go into a library and take a loop of a chord progression, and then I could glue a melody loop on top of that, and let's say they fit at a decent level together, and then I'm just going to put like a rhythm loop down there below. It's never going to amount to an interesting piece of music. Like there's no like it's just not going to it's not going to work in an interesting way. Yes, it's possible, but is that music?
You can hear that very easily as well, if it's done like that.
Yeah, it sounds super generic and uninspiring. So yeah, cool. Going to the second to last question, what is your definition of an artist?
Oh, you mean just artist in general?
Yes.
That's a tough one.
It is tough, and also you could like it doesn't need to be like an end all be all definition, completely exhausting the definition of it, but it could also be like a definition of what defines an artist. Could be an aspect of artistry.
It is, yeah. It's a difficult question. I would say, in my mind, it's always it's someone who creates something new. I mean, it's new, but it's not completely new. It's always inspired by something else. But creating something new for other people to enjoy, I guess, is I guess would be. Doesn't have to be new. I mean, I guess you're just creating something that for other people to enjoy. It doesn't have to be new, I feel like.
And also, new is a pretty difficult definition, first of all. Like,
exactly, yeah.
New to who and new in what way. And that's often like one of the things that that I also talk about, is that so many artists get obsessed about creating something that's new in every way, shape, and form.
Completely unique.
Yeah, in every regard. And the truth is that creating something like that is, if not entirely impossible, it's extremely rare. So usually what artists do manage to do is they combine things into a form that is unique and novel and interesting. So you take all of these different things that you find to be cool and interesting and inspiring, and it's in the way you put them together in a new configuration that is unique and new, because that is actually very possible to do, because it's when that complexity and all those different aspects come into play, then the combination of things can truly be unique. And that's why you can hear an artist that really resembles somebody, but it's a new, fresh take and a different perspective. And you're like, ooh, that's new. It's not new in the sense that it's not like the Beatles, who just like blow the roof off, but it's a new, very interesting take on a certain style or sound or
exactly.
another artist.
Yeah, even if you make like covers, you're still an artist. Even though you're using someone else's work originally, you're still producing it or performing it in a new way.
Yeah. I mean, there's a way to make a cover like trying to be exactly like the original, or there's a way to make a cover where it's completely unique and you take the essence of the track, but you do something very different with it. So yeah, I think that's a much more healthy way of looking at creativity, and much more viable thing to try and accomplish.
Sure.
This usually my last question, well, always, is if you could send a message to everyone's smartphone on the lock screen, so that they have to look at it if they want to open up the phone. You can send any message, any picture. Hopefully not. Well, that's no pictures. It can only be text. You could send like a message to everybody that they absolutely have to look at. What would you send? Other than links to your music.
No, the first thing that popped into my mind was actually stop eating meat. That's what I was thinking. Any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, I eat a lot of meat, so
I
would definitely then need that message from your perspective. But
yeah, I mean, there's many reasons why I think that. Of course, it's a very, very, very like touchy subject, because there's a lot of people eating meat. I feel like that's one in Finland as well. I feel like meat is a big thing there as well. I remember when I was in the army in Finland. I was part of the VMTK, which is like I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like the association for like all the voice of the army people. Like we can bring up issues in the brigades to higher ups, and one suggestion we had was to have one veggie day, like one vegetarian day in a week, and that was our suggestion from our brigade. It did not work because there was a lot of people not liking that at all. They really wanted their meat, and I feel like it's been proven to be healthier and also to be better for the environment. That's something you can't deny, but of course, it's a cultural thing. It's more than just that. So I do understand that it's a very difficult subject, but in my opinion, we could at least cut down on meat for various reasons. Yeah, that's my view.
And to be clear, I also do eat a lot of vegetables. I probably eat even when I. That's basically what I eat. Like I eat meat and vegetables. That's pretty much it. Some dairy thrown in there, eggs, stuff like that. But I probably eat more vegetables than a lot of people who only eat vegetables.
Yeah, well, that's very good.
But and to be clear, I think there are many. Actually, well, meat is super nutrient dense, and also I think a big, and I think it can be healthy. I think where it gets very unhealthy is, well, certainly all the processing of it. I would not eat processed meat at all. Like if you put anything like that in front of me, I'll say no. So it needs to be like just the proper stuff. And also I would say that there are many ethical ways of making and harvesting meat, and there are many ways that are not that.
Yes,
and there are many ways to also raise meat in whatever form it may be, in ways that are sustainable to the environment, but most of it obviously isn't.
Sure. So, exactly. Yeah.
So
the same can be said for vegetable products as well.
So, yes, and that's also, I say equally, if not even more of a problem in that world, because it can be super damaging to the environment. So yeah, I think it's more about how we do these things, and also some of the, well, almost all the processed meat beyond cutting the meat is super not good for you. They put all kinds of things in there that are very nasty. But yeah, nutrition is like it's such a convoluted and complicated topic, and like very difficult to boil down to simple things. There are so many variables at play. So
yeah,
cool. All right. Well, I think we've been going for more than 3 hours already.
Yeah.
But first of all, again, thanks for doing this. I find your position in where you are right now super interesting, because, well, I mean, I just love the backstory of what you've done, and you've done tremendous music. I really like it, and I'm really interested in seeing how. Well, first of all, how Shapez 2 will sound like, but also how it will do, because it has potential to be doing well, and I hope you reap all the benefits from that, and you can, as a result of that, focus on doing exactly what it is that you want to do.
Yes, I hope so too. And thank you for having me. So thank you. It's been an honor.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, and most importantly, really cool to get to know you a bit, and hopefully we can stay in touch and trying to help each other in any way and shape form we can.
Looking forward to Breachway as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. It's really been tough, because we've been delayed, because we were supposed to release early access in March, which basically was, my budget was budgeted until that time. So I've been kind of like a fire under my ass, as they say here in Finland. Tuli Peppsen, so called. So yeah, it's tough figuring out how to stay afloat. But And also, yeah, I still need to finish the music for the early access. I do have the tracks, but it doesn't. The mix.
Yeah, I listened to the trailer. It was really really good.
Oh yeah, that one.
Is that your music in the trailer?
Yeah,
nice.
That's kind of like that's one of the tracks that is going to be in the soundtrack. I would say like later on. It's probably not going to be in early access, but we sort of took that and then I made it for that trailer.
Yeah. I did the same thing for Shapez too as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a much preferred way versus taking some third-party music that is different. Yeah. Which was the case for our very first trailer, which was super old, but
yeah.
But yeah, I still feel like I need to make it sound a lot better. Like I'm more in a mixing phase right now more than anything else. But hopefully we can get like a half decent sounding early access release, and hopefully then we get enough sales that we can continue, and then I can actually relax for a bit and write from a more better place, less stressed, for sure.
I hope so too. Good luck with that. Good luck. It's stressful, but I hope it does well.
Yeah. Well, we can only do our best. And the same thing when it comes to Shapez. Sounds like a pretty relatively similar position.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, pleasure getting to know you a bit. I'm gonna get you back into writing the soundtrack for Shapez 2.
Yeah,
Which
I will. I swear.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Cool.
Just a little break first.
Yeah. Bit of procrastination and then.
But just a tiny bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll see you later.
Yep.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.